Guess what? It's been like a week or so. I don't know how long. We'll see when this comes out. But we're here to talk about volumes 8 to 12 of Mushoku Tensei's light novel series. And when I say we, I mean me, someone who has read the entire light novel series first time a few years ago. And I'm now not necessarily actually rereading. I'm just along for the ride for these few volumes with Jarkey Bacon, who is reading for the first time. So say something, Jarkey Bacon.
Me, I'm here.
He
I've
is
read it.
here.
I've read it, and I'm not putting each volume as on my media list because I'm waiting till it's all over to put it in one slot.
That's
Unlike
very
some people.
that's very efficient of you, because you could have 26
Yeah,
entries in this by the time it's over.
I
But
know. I could. It
yep,
could have make up half of the things I read this year.
yep. But
Hmm.
also before we start, everyone, if you are an anime only, do not listen to this because there is some stuff in this sequence of volumes here that are going to be covered in season 3, and you're going to be disappointed if you hear about it here and you're like, oh, I wish I waited. So don't listen to this if you're anime only. Anyway, that's the warning. Um,
I mean, we could also just like talk about it before.
we could,
Just
but
be like,
I don't know. We can let's just talk about it. We can
right,
talk freely about
right,
it. I don't think it's a very
okay,
small audience who is anime only listening to this at this point anyway. So I don't mind
cool.
defending them. But Bacon, I'm on the edge of my seat. Bacon, what do you think? I guess firstly, to set a little bit of a stage here, for anyone who doesn't know, me and Bacon, and as well as Kai Entertainment, we went through season 2 of the anime very recently. You know, basically week by week. You know, occasionally we'd lump some stuff together. So I feel like we're pretty familiar with this. I would have to assume Bacon is pretty familiar with this too. So this is a very different experience to reading those first 7 volumes, which had been quite a while since you read the first anime. So yeah, well, basically, what do you think, Bacon, and your whole experience of this?
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to get onto the new stuff. That's why I'm tired, because I was like, oh, well, I'll just see what they're doing next. 'Cause it ends on such a good note, and it didn't give me any extra perspective chapters at the end of volume 12, which they have sometimes so far. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't like get any new stuff. I was like, oh, I want new stuff, and then I started a new chapter, and it's like, oh no, this is just beginning of a new, completely different and this is just the start of a new arc. There's no
Mm-hmm.
drama. Is still quite slow paced, in quotation marks. Um, so I kind of kept on reading, even though I
Mm-hmm.
probably could have just waited. So yeah. What did I think? I don't know. Good. I enjoyed it.
That's good.
It's no like, oh, this is the 10 out of 10 masterpiece, the greatest thing I've ever done,
Mm-hmm.
because I experienced the story before. Um, I do think there's a lot of extra bits that you just don't get in the anime.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I don't even think I could really give you great examples because there's just so many of them.
Sure.
But yeah, I started actually making notes around volume 10, so I don't have any from like volume 8.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause we included volume 7 last time, didn't we?
Yeah. So this is
So I
just
did
8 to
volume
12.
8,
So I guess
8, 12.
so what
Yeah.
8 is basically like, oh, again, we're enrolling in the uni, we're doing like the entrance stuff and basically a bunch of early school stuff, and then 9 would be
Hmm.
the Vadagati stuff, which I've talked about in the past a lot. I'm very
Yeah.
curious when we get to talk about that. The Nanahoshi stuff I think was no, that's volume 9 I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, and the
Um
start of the fits, and like,
yeah.
yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure they Sophie was revealed in 9 as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So Bacon, I guess how do you want to do this? Do you want to go through your notes or should I ask questions or what do you think?
Ask questions up until I
All
get to
right.
volume 10, and then I've got notes.
Okay. Well, my first question is more overall, which is I don't know what type of notes you have, but what did you think? I'm very curious what you think about Luke and Ariel. Purely because I feel like my memory is that we got a lot more of them in these volumes, but I wonder if that's also what you think or not really at all. Like what do you think of these two characters?
Yeah. So you definitely get more of them,
Mhm.
but from my expectation from listening to you talk about them in like our anime discussions, I thought there would be more, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like, I
Yep.
don't think we really get maybe a one perspective chapter, but like Luke, I kind of it was funny because like Rudeus fights Luke, um, like once they get married or whatever, and doesn't really explain why Luke wants to fight Rudeus, and it
Mhm.
kind of also tells you that, oh my word, Luke's like actually not that good of a swordsman,
Yeah, absolutely.
which is quite the reveal.
Oh, I'm
Um,
Bacon. I'm so glad to hear that. That's all I wanted to hear from you. Because one of
oh,
my
okay.
because when I was reading through for the first time, one of the things that I was I came to the conclusion when I came to that Luke fight in the wedding. Um I thought it was amazing because I was like, this is so cool. This whole time I thought Luke was like really strong and everything, and that was like, oh my god, I can't wait for him to do something really cool. Is this like crazy knight from the kingdom for Azra, like defending the princess and everything? He's so strong, obviously. And then you have the fight, and he gets handedly defeated by Rudeus. And I think Rudeus even points out that it's like, oh, he's actually like below. He's even better than average, but it's like nothing compared to like,
Dude,
uh,
the guy's paid to win. He's got all his
pretty
gear
much,
on.
yeah,
He's got
yeah,
his boots. And then if Rudeus beats someone in a sword fight, I know they're nothing special. Let's just put it that way, right?
sure, yeah,
Because like Rudeus is okay. He's practiced a lot, but that's like not what he's. Rudeus is also like I guess Rudeus has his eye of foresight, but which is pretty big.
mm-hmm.
But when Rudeus was like, I could have beaten him without my eye of foresight, I was like, that's crazy. So yeah,
Yeah,
you know, it's
exactly.
not very good.
So the reason this like became such a good thing for me, or why it really elevated Luke's character, was it kind of reframes him to, in my perspective, when that reveal kind of happens, because I wasn't sure if it was the reveal basically. So I'm trying to see like if since you kind of thought of it as a reveal too, that's kind of interesting. It reframes it as though he, rather than being strong or like that being his thing, whereas like he's some like warrior or something, he's a friend. Like he's a very good friend who is like looking after Ariel, even if he's not necessarily the best person for that job. He's trying to do the best he can in a situation where he's probably not the ideal candidate. And he does it because he likes Ariel, and obviously he likes Sylphie as well. And I like that. I thought that was really cute. There was more depth to Luke than I thought until that moment where you kind of get the reveal that he probably isn't the best suited for this protector role.
Hmm.
So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, do you think that like he he almost certainly has romantic feelings for Ariel, right? But they
Mm,
can't enact on that because of her position, I would assume.
it's maybe,
Um,
yeah, it's probable. Like she is in a
I mean,
very she's the reason she's at this uni is because of, oh, whatever they call it, because of political struggle, right? She had to escape, so maybe it's probably not the best thing to
mm,
be, pursuing relationships and stuff as well. So
I mean, like just one of their like first conversations, they're being very frank with each other, but like in a subtextual way, basically, because they're talking about
mhm.
basically they're talking about something sexual, basically, which you wouldn't expect from a bodyguard and a princess.
Sure.
Um, so yeah.
Yep. Okay. So we got
Mm.
more of them. This was also something I was curious on because I did read a few like chapters of these volumes because I was like, oh, are they actually that good? And one thing I was thinking that I was curious if the things that I describe, whether when you actually read them, if you think that I place more emphasis on them than I should. Um, and I think that's almost certainly true for everything that like anyone ever talks about, like their favorite thing, because when I'm like talking about for instance, the Batagati scene later, where it's like everyone is like arriving and it's like really a big build up and everything. I'm kind of trying to convey my feeling when I read it, which doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the text and how actually like well written or how interesting even the story is at that point. Um, so you like kind of emphasize elements that you find interesting and that someone else might not, and it kind of leads to like I don't even know what it leads to. It's like a mismatch of expectations, kind of. I find it pretty
Mm.
interesting, but yeah, I was interested to see. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no, it is interesting because it does feel like a bit different to like manga in a weird way, where it's like I feel like when you read manga, like maybe it's because there's just so many more words and there's so many small little things that can be revealed, but in like manga, it's like you kind of all pop off at the same point, you know? But here
Mm,
it kind of feels like, oh my word, there's so much going on. Like, oh, there's this little bit of information on this one.
sure.
Um, yeah, it's interesting. Um, yeah. Uh, I mean, like, for example, the Batagati scene, I remember you making a big deal about it. I read through it, and yeah,
Hmm.
it did make a thing like, but it wasn't as big a deal as I thought it was. Like, it kind of, like, the fact that there's people encircling the school, like, it wasn't
It wasn't as big as I
like,
would make it sound because in my mind it's massive,
yeah,
but like that's because I just
yeah,
love it and I built it. I don't. It's not even the build up. It's the when you're engaging with a story, it's not just the words on the page. You're kind of imagining what's happening. My interpretation
Yeah,
for a story like this is going to be way different from
that's
someone else, more
true.
so than a manga where you actually
Yeah.
have the visuals on screen, for instance.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like more explicit because you got the visuals. But I think it's also just like it could have been really big if it just went from the perspective of someone not Rudeus. It's
mhm.
because it kind of takes this kind of like very wide-eye perspective, like zoomed out perspective. But it could be like, yeah, you could have a perspective chapter from like literally the king of Azura or whatever from Darius or something. It's like we've noticed someone coming through this.
Mhm.
What? He's gone, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
There's probably also something to say about people are going to have the characters that they enjoy more. So whenever, like, for instance, whenever I saw that there was a Norn perspective chapter, I was like, oh my gosh, how exciting, you know? But
Mhm.
other people are going to be like, oh my gosh, look at this, we're getting a Rudeus perspective or something. Like, other people are going to be interested in different things.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, books are
we
very
did get
personal.
one rigid perspective, which was crazy.
Did we? Which one was it?
I think so. Yeah. No, don't worry. Don't worry. We'll get there. I think. I
All
think.
right.
I think my notes.
All
Yeah,
right,
I think
excellent.
I got it. Cool.
Okay, then let me go ask some more questions. There's some more broad kind of questions. So these volumes, I guess, if you discount maybe the last two, these are much less action oriented. There's a lot more, I guess, character dynamics. There's like many more characters, and they're all interacting in different ways. It's very much more slice of lifey, you know, just like the anime was. But I feel like it's kind of when you're in a light novel and you're covering slice of life stuff, there's a lot more room for small details. And in my opinion, it can be more engaging if you enjoy those small details. Um, Now, what did you think basically of the less action oriented kind of tone for these volumes? Good, bad?
Man, I was just like, dude, that horny ass. That is
Oh,
like
that is true.
so. There's like the amount of times that like that Rudeus is just like I'm like just in general I guys I get it. Sophie's got small boobs. You don't have to tell me
Mm-hmm.
for the 15th time in this.
Yep.
There's a lot of that. Like it's like yeah, it is so much. It's such a big focus. Um, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the amount of like euphemisms he came up for his ED was quite funny, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, it is all over it, and it's like it's such a massive focus, which I
Mm-hmm.
didn't find it didn't necessarily turn me off, but it was definitely like felt overly a bit exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of things that I'm like because you I thought it was surprising because after you meant there's a web novel and then there's a light novel as well, and I
Mm-hmm.
guess the light novel is like the visual version.
Yep.
Um, but it really feels like this needs an editor. Someone needs to,
Okay.
like if it like, because there's a lot of points, and this is necessarily on like the sexual stuff. There's a lot of points where you have one chapter, and then like it goes to the next chapter, and it kind of assumes that you've not read in a while, that you're not reading from one to the other, and then
Mm-hmm.
it will re-explain stuff. I think a key one I had an idea like of this is when Rigid meets Badagadi. So Rigid comes over, they give him like, oh, and then I see a guy. He's got grey skin and a scar on his face. Um, oh, it's Rujid. I knew it was going to be Rujid, but like, they made a big point about not mentioning Rujid until this point of the potential people
Mm-hmm.
that could be like returning them home. Um, and then, and then like the next chapter is a weird perspective because it's like Rudeus looking and then he describes there's two big figures on my lawn, and then he describes Rigid in exactly the same way, and then Badagadi, in like he's got obsidian skin and 6 arms or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, this feels like they don't expect you to have read the previous chapter because it's so obvious it's Rigid, and I'm sitting there at least listening to this. I think that's maybe another thing. It's not, you know, it's not
Mm-hmm.
the best listening to. It's definitely feels better to read because I think your eyes can actually glance over these details. But it definitely feels like someone should have come in here and like basically made it a smoother read in between chapters, just to um, take out some of the redundant. I mean, there could be a reason for it, of course, but a lot of it does
Mm-hmm.
seem a bit redundant for the reader. So,
I am
um,
curious, because I didn't read this in detail. Was that okay? Basically, what I want to say in response to this is that when I think of the repeated details sometimes, or like Rudius's descriptions of things over time, like being repeated, um, I think of them as sometimes comedic. Like the irony is that we know what's going on, and Rudeus secretly knows what's going on when he's describing, say, I don't know in this case, for instance, but let's have a hypothetical where he's describing like
Yeah.
Rudeur's like appearance and not saying it's Rudeurd. I think there's an irony there which is meant to be comedic, where it's like we know this is Rudeurd, Rudeus knows this is Rudeurd, but he's kind of describing it as though as though no one does, and that's like the comedy of it. But I don't know. In this case, I think it probably was serious, and maybe it's just like a
Yeah,
unnecessary
well,
over repetition.
I think it did this. This is not just an isolated example. There's a lot where it starts a new volume and it feels the need to like explain
Mm.
what like who Sylphie is to Rudy. And it's like,
Mm.
no, I remember who Sylphie is. Like, I don't need to be told that she's the one that's cured your ED, right? Like I know that's the major part of our character. I can
Mm.
understand, and I know we're not okay. Spoiler for volume 13, I guess. But like basically, oh, what if Susanna comes back into the fold, right? That's
Mm.
understandable to explain who Susanna is again because we haven't seen her in a couple
Sure.
chapters. But I think there's also better ways. Like it kind of explains to the readers, like, ah, yes, Susanna. Maybe it's kind of like just trying to remember himself. It's like and he doesn't remember all the details. So he's kind of telling himself, and that's kind of meta thing where he tells you. But there's definitely ways to write it better. Maybe it's because it's from Japanese translation, right? And this is what the style of that they write in or what. No,
Mm.
yeah, like this is the first time I'm reading like a light novel, but there's definitely
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I wouldn't say it's like that's probably the biggest quirk of the actual writing itself.
Mm-hmm.
But the content is good, like fun generally, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not
Interesting.
complaining too much,
Okay.
but yeah.
Okay. Excellent, Bacon. Um.
Yeah, anyway, this couple's horny. Rudius is super horny, like he talks about it all the time.
Yeah. I guess let
And
me
it's
say.
like always on his mind. And I mean, I guess you could be like he's 16 years old, but it's like I'm having a bath with Aisha. Oh, hey, I want to have these thoughts. I'm just like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool. And he's like, well, but I'm not going to do it because she's my sister. But I'm like, okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for letting me know. Like it is like, and maybe it's because he's like literally a 16-year-old boy, but like as someone who was a 16-year-old boy, that
Mm-hmm.
was like not my experience of it. So
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting. Let me
But
think.
it's a big experience. It's a big theme of the manga. But it's just one of those things that I just like. Oh wow, yeah, this is very prevalent. Doesn't bother me that massively, but I just wondered, yeah, what would you say to that? Yeah,
Yeah, that is interesting because obviously, I agree that there's a lot of innuendo and a lot of direct like Rudeus thinking through a sexual lens or whatever, or portraying his thoughts through that. Mostly in a comedic kind of way, but sometimes seriously. When it's done seriously, I guess it's not really that much of an issue for me. Um, but firstly, I would say that I'm not a big fan of this. Like when I think back to Rudeus, I think, or when I'm reading, for instance, these chapters. They're the parts I like gloss over where I'm like, okay, this is fine. Like I get it. This is just who
yeah,
Rudeus is, but I don't enjoy it. I'm like, oh, that was my favorite part where he described like I don't know I don't know the way like Elinalise looks or something. I don't know.
yeah.
It's not my favorite
For the
parts, but
50th time,
yeah,
it's like she's very beautiful. She looks like a model. She's got small boobs, but her butt's nice though. I'm just like, cool. You told me this like 50 pages ago.
yeah. I
Um,
think this is just Rudeus's characterization, which is fine. I think
yeah,
I'm more curious to see. Well, I guess I know, but I'm curious to see how it evolves over time. Um, I know, for instance, when I got to the end of the 26th or 25th volume, I guess back then, and then I went and I read the beginning of the volume, and to me there is beginning of the story. There is a very stark difference in the way that Rudy is portrayed. Now I don't know if that's like I guess we'll have to see as we're going through this if it's like an intentional thing or if it was just like my kind of perspective when I go back to the first volume of the story. But yeah, I don't know. Let's keep track of this, see if this changes, I guess, but maybe not.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, yeah. I've not been actually keeping numbers, so even if it goes down 50%, it probably would feel like it's still very, very in your face. But yeah,
yeah, very much so.
I think there are some things, but yeah, it's just like there's some interesting things. Okay, like for example, like okay, so there's one point during this where I typed to you, I'm like, dude, Luke, he's a bit of a dick. Like, what a guy. Because
Mm,
basically, this is like one of those points where I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Basically, Luke just comes out and it's like, no one would like you, Sylphie, because you don't have big boobs. And it's like Luke's being characterized as someone who is kind of like Paul. He has a type,
mm,
shall we say? I'm just like, dude, that is like raw.
Hmm.
That is a crazy thing to say, and but like it's like the most backhanded compliment or whatever. Maybe I should have written down what he actually said, but like that's new, and that's fine to talk about because it's like, yeah, that's like strong characterization of Luke and Sophie's
Well,
relationship, which I
yeah,
think she yaps back at him at some point, and you're just like, oh, okay, this is good banter.
there's a
But he's
very
also,
yeah, there's a very big difference when Rudeus does it because he's not saying these things out loud, at least not the majority of the time. He's just thinking it. Um,
yeah,
we're just hearing it all the time, and it's like all of his thoughts are like portrayed through this certain lens. Well, not all of them, but like a large chunk of them. Um,
yeah,
yeah, it's very different.
hmm yeah, um,
Hmm. All right.
yeah,
Well, let me think. I have one more general question, um, which is if you were emotionally invested at all, I guess compared to the anime as well, because there is a
yeah,
lot of emotional stuff here. Like that's kind of the more appeal of these volumes, I would say, more so than the previous
yeah.
ones.
Oh, was I more emotionally invested here or in the anime? Is
Just
that what
generally,
you're asking?
what was your emotional investment? Had you any emotions at all, or not really? More of a straight read through and be like, oh, this is interesting.
My favorite moments are always the ones where the focus is on dialogue between characters. This is the same in the anime. Less
Mm-hmm.
description and character dialogues that we don't get often. Like one of my favorite chapters again here was Paul, Lilia, and Rudeus. There's like a small little scene here which they kept in the anime, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Of like Paul finally being able to like give Rudy tips,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But then they start making fun of like Lilia, like for like her being like, "Oh, you shouldn't talk about this stuff," and then they kind of wind her up. I'm just like, that's so natural. And one
Mm-hmm.
of the best things I think I've seen, which I do make a note of, I'm just like, I understand why the the dialogue has been pretty uninteresting, and that's because Rudius is literally being called out for being too polite, and so he's getting less polite now and more casual with people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like shown us quite a big change, and it comments on it a couple times, and it kind of made, yeah, no, it made a couple scenes even better. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
like okay, I'll complain about the sex stuff, but I'll go on to something in volume 13. But it made me laugh a lot. It's like basically, Rudius comes back, he bursts through the door, and he's like, "Oh, Zanoba, I'm back." And Zanoba's basically he's like banging one of his dolls,
Oh
which
yes.
and then
Oh my
Rudius like
god.
looks at him. They make eye contact. Rudius leaves the
Yep.
room, and then it says Rudius just stayed outside that room for 10 minutes until he heard a small little whimper saying, "I'm done." And then Rudius comes in, and he looks at him, and they pretend it never happened. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like I just it's one of those scenes I conjure up and I then think in the anime. I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I hope they do that in a
Yep.
funny way. And it's like that's another yeah, that's it's like those ones, and we're having like basically a couple of these scenes where yeah, I think when it comes to serious dialogue, I don't know. I remember absolutely loving like the end of season 2 in the anime where there's like what Norn says, and I feel like maybe they may have
Mm-hmm.
added stuff that felt harsher. But it's like when it gets into the real nitty gritty, that is a phenomenal scene.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel it as much in the manga because I feel like I remember there was more said, but it's definitely hurt. Like you're like, oh my word, she's going in. Like,
Mm-hmm.
sheesh, here we go. So yeah, there is a lot of funny funny things. Like I think as they're just loosening up a little bit and have a bit more banter,
Mm-hmm.
and that helps me like characters more. And it gives them more space to characterize themselves and
Mm-hmm.
feels more closer to what stories I normally read. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, um, hmm, yeah. I mean, let me think. Was there anything in volume 8 and volume 9 that I really, really remember? I can't remember now. I should be making notes for them. But anyway, I started making notes. So
What
yeah,
about getting a slave, getting Julie? What do you think of that? Anything stand out there? That was a big
yeah,
controversy for the anime.
yeah. It was. I think actually the more stuff that. Like I think we talked about this as well. That there's quote unquote problematic or makes me feel a bit odd is Lilia and Aisha's just relationship in
Yeah,
general.
I
I'm like,
completely
I do
agree.
not, I feel like how they relate to the rest of the family is just so bizarre. Um, and it's definitely like, it's not even an ethical thing. It's like almost like a cultural thing. I just don't get how Rudius isn't like screaming to himself that like, this is weird.
Mm-hmm.
I should be like really focusing and like like Lydia says some stuff, and I know she's kind of portrayed as kind of stuck in her way, and she really sticks to her role.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, I'm just like, dude, I don't care. Like, I'm the master of this house, and I'm making sure that you, like, okay, you can do what you want, but like, it's just so weird that like it basically kind of glosses over that. Oh, they want to do it, so it's okay, but it still feels really odd.
Mm-hmm.
The actual slave bit with Julie, like, is made like pretty obvious that she is in like the worst possible conditions, so you don't feel nearly as bad. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like so bad. Yeah, so it's kind of like there are definitely some bits where you're just like Zanoba's treating her like an actual girl, where you're like, okay, that's cool. And then other times he's like how he talks to her, he's like, yeah, she's still a slave,
Mm-hmm.
but she seems to enjoy herself and not having an awful time, so that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good thing she really likes. She's being forced to love figurines, and good thing she actually likes figurines.
That
Otherwise,
is true.
we'd have an issue. I mean, I wonder if there's an arc where she like grows up to be a rebellious teenager and is like, I hate figurines, or something like that.
I
That'd be
feel like that.
interesting.
Yeah, maybe. I guess we'll see.
We'll see.
Okay. So let me think. I don't know exactly what you have notes on, because the other stuff I have is scenes that we need to talk about, just like a few important scenes that I'm like, I want to bring these up and see what you
Cool.
thought about them. And then I have like a few minor notes on my own, but I don't know. I
Cool.
guess we can go through
Well,
your notes, and then if there's anything we
yeah.
haven't talked about, we'll go through these.
Yeah, so these are just things I think of as I'm doing it, and I like tab over and like type something down.
Mm-hmm.
So my first one was, damn, this is a horny couple. They are going at it.
Sure.
I'm almost more surprised that Roxy isn't pregnant yet. And then okay, so another thing, I'm like, the old owner's house will definitely be relevant later on. Could be Orsted that owns this house. Because I kind of forgot this detail, but like, yeah, it has like some super high tech. That's insane.
True.
Yeah, I'm gonna filter in with like, yeah, but like volume 13 like instantly becomes even more relevant. I guess like, yeah, like because he gets like a prosthetic hand basically. And you're like, well,
Oh my
okay,
god.
crazy. Someone who was like called, like, if their channel began with M and ended with L, they'd probably be like, this is really convenient. This undermines all the feelings of the last. Anyway, but yeah. So anyway, that owner is surely going to be super relevant later on. You also got Nana Hoshi's master, who's kind of in the background of things. Like, oh, my master won't care if you did use this or whatever. Not master. Then she got like mate that helps her with summoning and stuff. So I feel like it's all tied together. These people like turn up. They're like the Elite Four. Or maybe it's the same person. That's probably who it is. They're probably no. Actually, no. Would that be the same person? No, that wouldn't be. Anyway,
Wait, what do you mean by the
quite
same
cool.
person? Like the person in the house and the
Yeah,
person
the
she
old
refers to?
house owner. Yeah, maybe. I don't think so. Actually, now I think about it. Anyway, but yeah, this is something. Anyway, you're not gonna pull a fast one on me. One thing I do notice, there is like a bit of a Chekhov's gun when it comes to relationships, is that like there's very few characters that aren't like somehow tied into another. Like, for example, a great example is like when it's revealed that Lilia was actually Ariel's bodyguard, like, and she was, she was the princess who she dived in for. Like, it could have been a random noble, but these like links are made. And actually, would Lilia actually see Ariel? Oh, she could. That's so cool. That's like the stuff that gets me excited. It's like, oh, they know each other. I want to see them reunited. Those are really cool moments. So anyway, we'll see if that ever happens. I said Zanoba's still the GOAT. I don't know what he did, but I typed that.
Because he's great. Right? He's funny. He is a good friend. You know, he's kind of cool. He has like powers and stuff. Oh my gosh.
He definitely did something funny in this moment. But yeah, I think it's probably after Nanahoshi just like, oh no, it's just so funny because like Zanoba just like hugged the doll and it just like beat him up, but he's like, I don't care. That was kind of cool scene.
True.
Anyway, yeah, I think so. I'd say probably if I was to make like a 4-minute video, I'd make it on Mushoku Tensei and imposter syndrome, because every character has like crippling imposter syndrome, which is so funny. It is so obvious, definitely in like episodes in volume 13. I'm gonna just refer to everything I've thought. So like I'm like chapter 6 in volume 13, but it's like Rudeus is going around and he's like, Roxy's the greatest person ever, and then it's like then Roxy's actually just like, I don't know how to feel about this because I'm not actually that great. There's literally a point where Roxy's just like, this is my one king tier magic spell, but I don't want to show you because you're gonna learn it straight away. And then Rudeus goes and learns it straight away.
Yeah, sure.
Like the first try, and she's just like, I knew that was gonna happen. Why did I show you? Like you know, like everybody's got crippling imposter syndrome. Sophie's got it. Paul's got it. Zanoba has it, which it hasn't even gone in his perspective, but you can just see how Zanoba talks. He's just like, I'm useless apart from my physical strength. Elinalise probably has it. Rugid has it in a way, like he regrets. The only person who doesn't seem to have it is Cliff, even though kind of Cliff probably does have it because he has some. But Cliff's just like, I love his meme of just being like, it's like, this is hard, but I'm a genius. He just loves saying, I'm a genius. I'm a prodigy. I'm the greatest of all time. Even though he knows he's not and he's been humbled, he still just, he has like this unabashed confidence in himself. Like almost unreasonable, which I kind of like because it's like refreshing. Because everybody's just like, the reason why character conflict, like, Eris had it. That's why their whole character conflict happened, is because Eris didn't think she was good enough for Rudy, and then Rudy then has his whole character arc because he thinks that he's not good enough for Eris, or he didn't. Anyway, so on and so forth. It's like such a prevalent thing. Yeah. And then, you know, big thing about Sophie is like, oh, well, Rudy's not going to remember me because I'm not that special to him. And then even when he does know me, he won't like me because I'm not like, because my body, like, she's self-conscious about, guess what, her small boobs. Because that always comes up.
Because of damn Luke. My goodness.
Yeah, because of Luke. Oh, I guess so in retrospect. That's probably where she got it from. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, Luke, you're a dick, man. Anyway, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of cool. I'd have to find a way to condense that, but something poetic maybe.
You should definitely make a
just
video.
Linking. Don't worry, I've got stuff cooking in my mind, but I've got like 15 things that haven't seen the light of day, so who knows? What is it? Yeah, there's a lot of anime references. Some I get, sometimes I don't get. That was one that was she said this was the will of Steins Gate. The other one was when Rudy's passes ED, and then he has like an Ava reference without experience Ava. It's like everybody got around me and started congratulating me, and it felt like that one scene in the anime or something like that. So that's when he goes into the home classroom and he's like, "Guys, I've been cured of my impotence," and everybody goes, "Congratulations."
Jesus.
Everybody in this volume sounds like Light Yagami because they try and do that thing where like Sylvie's like, we're gonna make sure that he like remembers me, and we have to think of this big brain plan, and like so over the top. But that's how like everybody reads in this light novel. It's like I'm going to be the biggest brain. I'm on the spectrum. I need to plan this out, and I don't know actual human interaction. So Rudeus does it all the time, and then when I found out, Sophie does it and Errol does it, which is quite funny.
That was a fun chapter where they're going through the forest and Rudy just like keeps almost like ruining their plans, and it's like, this is great.
Yeah, that was quite funny. It's like Sophie having to be like, because she's got the staff, she's able to like quietly like summon more mana, and like Rudy there's like Rudy's just looked depressed that
he couldn't part the clouds or whatever.
Yeah. I was wondering, you could just imagine, like, if I was in his perspective for this chapter, it would have been like half a page, if not a whole page, of him being like, "This should work. Maybe this is why it didn't work," and him somehow logically rationalizing why it wasn't working. You can't imagine that.
Yep.
The Nanahoshi party was amazing. That's great, and I even found the actual. I'm gonna send it to you in DMs, but the actual like, she's like the thing she was doing karaoke of is this ED, and anyway, what was it? Rudy's like, she sucked at singing, but it was great. It was nice. Nanahoshi's arc being quite fun. It's interesting, I mean, this goes on to another point where it's like there's like this scene where I didn't realize they were speaking Japanese, and then like Rudy's like, I'm also from your world. I'm just like, and then it like reveals later that Sophie was like sat there confused because they were staying Japanese. I was like, oh, okay, wow, okay. I wasn't sure if to reveal it all to Sophie. I'm also like, to skip ahead, there's an obvious scene where like Roxy, this is all the stuff taken out of the anime. So when it gets revealed, I'm almost certain like it's gonna be a bit weird. But basically, like when this is like this is like definitely the unreliable Rudy narrator thing. But then again, maybe not, because like Roxy is also kind of dumb socially. So who knows? But like like he's cute as impotent. No, he's cute as depression, thanks to Roxy. And then Rudeus comes out. It's like, I have a question for you, Roxy. Imagine there was once a man, and then he just says his whole
Oh,
life
yes.
story, and then he's
Yeah.
just like, now Roxy definitely know it wasn't me. And I'm
Mm,
just like, dude, she definitely like you are the only person in this room, and you're asking like stuff
mm,
that's so obvious to his actual experience. It's like she's got one piece of the puddle, Sophie's got the other, because she realized that because they know that Nana Hoshi's from another world, right? And it's like, oh, we're
mm,
from the same place. And then like Nana Hoshi, like I think Sophie wants asked, and Nana Hoshi covers for him,
mm,
which but I'm like, Sophie's smart, she's gonna pick up on that, and then they just put it together and be like, oh, this is where Rudeus is actually from. Like it's gonna be kind of they're gonna my theory is that they're
mm.
gonna come back and then reveal it. And probably it's gonna happen when Eris comes back and she's gonna be a third part. Because they also do another thing, it's like, man, two wives, yeah. But then they
Mm.
sometimes say two or three wives. I'm just like, wow, okay. We know where this is going.
Interesting.
But then
Okay.
I also opened up the volume. Okay, this is a great thing about the volumes. They have pictures in them, which is really cool. Sometimes you're
Mm.
like, oh, that just perfectly encapsulates. Like some things, it's great, right?
Yep.
But then you open up the volume and they'll have like a spoiler or like a colored scene of like halfway through the light novel. And
Mm.
I've not got to it, but Sarah turns up in volume 13 at some point because the first picture's just like, here's Sarah talking to Rudeus in a quote. And I'm just like,
Oh my
that's
god.
cringe. Could you just take that out?
Mm.
Like I actually quite like reading it because I'm going to be probably reading more so now on because I'm just going to be smashing through this.
Mm.
Um, which, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, another side tension. But yeah,
Okay,
Nanahoshi
wait a minute,
Party,
wait a minute.
very
I feel
fun.
like I had some. Wait, you were talking about the Roxy thing. What did you say? What was the thing about the Roxy?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
the
like,
conversation. I wanted to say also, yeah, that was a
yeah.
big thing when the episode came out because obviously they cut that out. A lot of people, I think they have very strong opinions on like that particular scene. I think a lot of people really wanted that to be in the episode. I don't really care for it that much. I know how you're saying it's pretty obvious that he's talking about himself here. I'm not sure. I guess we'll have to see where this goes. But I could imagine
Okay, well,
multiple
Ari, you don't
readings
have
of
to
this.
smash my theory straight away, man.
No,
Okay.
no, I'm not smashing anything. I'm just saying
I'm
that
just kidding.
I'm saying this is not necessarily. I think it's okay to cut stuff like that. But
Yeah, I think, well, because they cut the other stuff, some of the other stuff with Sylvie, I think, as well. Like, my theory is that Sylvie has a piece of the puzzle. She just
mm,
needs to talk to Roxy about it,
yeah.
and they'll figure it out. They'll be like, okay, well, we know it's possible with Nanahoshi from another place.
Hmm.
Um, so we can kind of put two and two together.
Yeah, maybe all the
But yeah,
information's there, but it's just spread apart. Um,
yeah, that's
so
that's my and it's interesting because like Rudeus is kind of showing more and more about it, but he's being more open. Like he's got more people in his life that he needs because like as he kind of becomes more vested in his life and his life, he views himself as part of this world,
mhm.
like joining together, like his two personas. The more like honest he has to be, and therefore eventually this is going to come out, right? I'm certain.
Mhm.
I thought it was quite a concerted effort in this like bunch of chapters that like the fact that Nanahoshi is a character like
Mhm.
or Hoshi is it Hoshi
Nano, however you want, Bacon. Nanohoshi,
Nanahoshi.
Nanohoshi.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. All right. Next no Bacon. Go ahead.
Okay. Cool. Rigid being unsure about how to feel about Sophie is very interesting. Something
Mhm.
unique to the light novel. This was far more interesting when Rigid comes back and drops off the girls, like then when it was in the anime, because I don't remember this at all being part of Rigid's character. But it makes
Yep.
total sense because Rigid's seen him with Eris, but he doesn't really know what went down, and he doesn't know series. He's like one of the first few characters that really knows Rudeus well,
Yeah.
that's still alive, but doesn't know Sylphie. Like once like Paul hits Sylphie, then he's like, oh okay, yeah, it makes sense. You're not with Eris, right?
Mhm.
Like that makes sense. Like lots of them are able to get over it. Like even Aisha, right? Not
Yeah.
as much, but that's because no one doesn't know Sophie as well. But like, there's like this connection. But then Ridge is like the first one. He's just like, hold up, no, this is not how it's meant to be,
Yeah.
right? You're meant to be with Eris. But like, he keeps himself. I do still find it depressing that he leaves so quickly. I hate that everybody leaves so
I
quickly. Everybody's
I
like,
completely
I
agree.
can't be around it. I'm just like, dude, just stick around. The stick. You're like a mortal. You've been alive for 500 years.
Hmm.
What are you doing?
That's
Like
just
there
who
must be something.
Rudeus
There's gonna be a
is.
big really.
That is him.
Yeah,
That is himself. That's
yeah.
what I like
But no,
about
it's
it.
the same with the other party members, I guess, in a way. But they do go in town, but they don't stay. They all say
Hmm.
their goodbyes, and it doesn't really show as many scenes.
Yeah, but
And I
they've had
think,
a long time together, like traveling and like
yeah, that's
I
true. That's
I don't
true.
think it's very different. Ruja, I think it's like it's a very Ruja thing to do. Um,
Yeah,
but
that is true.
talking about this Ruja thing, um, something I think I talked about this to Kyle. Like, well, I don't think you were there. I think I was talking to Kyle about this when the scene happened in the anime. Um, as far as I remember, that scene I think is portrayed through Rudy's perspective, right? Where
Yeah,
he's talking about like, oh, as soon as I mentioned something, oh, Ruja started looking stiff or like awkward, and he was like his sentences were short, and he was like kind of explaining his perspective of what Ruja was thinking. I kind of read that as maybe Rudeus not being the reliable narrator there, maybe him inferring Rujd's feelings, where Rujd is a very stiff person and is not very good at expressing himself. He even said, I think this is like a thing that comes up when he's talking to Norn. I think when Norn runs away from in Eastport or something, like where Rujd is just not good at expressing himself, and maybe Rudeus is just not reading into it very well. But I think it is also equally possible that it is just how Rudeus is reading it, and it is like he's a bit sad, you know, that
yeah.
Eris isn't here and things didn't work out and everything, and he's a bit
That's the
awkward about it.
fascinating thing about like a light novel is that you don't, unless there's a picture that accompanies it that helps give you context, you don't actually know the objective truth of it.
Mm.
And I think what I liked about this one more is like before Rujid in the previous volumes, despite spending so much time with him, you didn't actually really get to know him. You're
Mm.
just like, okay, he's a really strong guy. He's discriminated against a lot. He's very quiet, and he likes children. That's like his defining character trait is that he's a kid guy. He likes his kids, likes
Mm.
protecting them, and he has this strong concept of a warrior as well. But then you have that thing. You have this thing where it's like, okay, like there's a bit more there with like this his feelings towards Eris and Rudy maybe, and then there's the big chapter where it's like, there's couple big reveals in that Southport Eastport thing with Norn, which I was pogging off about. I was like, Rugid, yeah, we get little bits of Rugid. Let's go.
Yep.
And one thing that wasn't talked about in the light novel yet, but it is in the end of the anime, is when he's like chilling with Badagadi as they're
Yeah.
walking together. Rugid did not look actually as happy as I remembered in the anime. So he looked like he was like kind of sweating. He was sweating bullets when Badagadi turned up. So they clearly got some past beef. But Badagadi buddy seems like an absolute chill dude, a lovely guy, which is way more clear in the light novel because like
He's always laughing. Wow.
yeah,
It's great.
apart from when he saw Rugid.
True,
which is
yeah.
big deal.
It is a big deal.
But
That is
then-
the contrast. It's really cool to see that.
Yeah. But then, like, you know, like he's chill, like he didn't take a side in the war, you know, like he's not actually that conflict. You kind of, it is different to how he's first portrayed. You're like, oh my word, this is the final boss. But then he actually, like, oh, I don't get into fights really. So, so particularly wars, big wars. So, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I then make a big point about, I made earlier about how like overly verbose and repeating itself the light novel seems to be.
Sure. Yeah.
Then we get some of the real Pog stuff, which is like new details about Eris and what Eris is up to.
Okay. Let's talk about the Eris stuff then. Go ahead, Bacon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you shocked to see that there was Eris in this, or like?
Yeah, I kind of was. I missed my note earlier completely, and I saw Zanoba was the goat, but I had a point before that where you had the Nina Eris chapter, which is also really cool because it makes a big point about this random night woman, and then like, oh, it seems even like a woman wants to come and fight you for the hand of what was it?
The
Priscilla
princesses.
princesses, cat princesses, beast folk princess. I've completely
Linnea and
zonked on
Persona.
Yes, Linnea and Persona. There we go. Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
True, this random girl in
like-
the anime with blue hair as well. When we saw her once in one scene.
I was like, oh, who's this? And then it's like made such a big note of like, oh, and it kind of confirms me. I was like, oh, I guess maybe there is some like fluidity, but no, it's like this is a very heteronormative culture. The beast folk, they don't have, you know, it's all only men that's proposing, and it's kind of odd that there's just the one girl, and it's just from Nina's perspective, which is like, Eris turns up, and she's like, it's weird. It almost seems like Eris's character has reverted in a way. Like by the time she's at end of read, she's like, okay, she's like almost a normal functioning person in society. She's not going to beat everybody up when they get. But then she turns up and she just goes absolute pure like 10-year-old Eris mode. She's like, I'm going to kill Orsted. I'm just like, that's some good behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to kill him. And then the guy and everybody's just like, oh my god, I can't believe this. And then
Like the disrespect,
the sword, the disrespect, and then the sword god's just like, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wiser than all of you peasants, saint tears, dumb idiots. You don't see what
Mm-hmm.
I see. And so he's like, go ahead, nephew, go fight her. And then he's like, and then as he's drawing a sword, she like beats him up in like the most disrespectful way possible before he's even drawn his sword or looked
Yep.
at her. And then everyone's like, oh my god, that's so not the disrespect. And then Nina turns up against her, and there's like they have, I think they have actually a reasonably fair fight, maybe not. But then like she loses a sword, and then it's like yes, I won. And then Eris just punches her in the face and beats her up on the ground and stuff like that.
Yep.
And I'm just like, oh my god, this. And then the sword god's like, oh, I see it, and it kind of almost, it kind of. This is one of so you have this whole Nina chapter where you're like, oh, that's who Nina is, and then she kind of realizes, oh my word, like she almost thinks, oh, I'm gonna go capture Rudeus and make her feel awful. And then like Rudeus is cool because we get like a perspective of Rudeus finally outside of Rudeus, and these are always the best chapters. I think there's a couple of them like this where you're like, oh yeah, I think I mentioned this last time, but one of the coolest chapters was from our goat Bruno, if you remember Bruno.
Yeah.
When it's like, oh yeah, this is what Rudeus actually looks like, and he actually looks, and she's like, man, this guy looks like a big thing, which isn't commented much on, but when it changes, it's a big thing. It's like Rudeus isn't confident in himself. He's kind of diminutive. He's very polite to everybody, and that's like her assessment of him. It's like, this guy looks like a beta cuck male.
Yeah.
I can beat him. I can beat him up. And so, but then she kind of sees him do the stuff with the beast folk, and she's like, oh my word, okay, maybe they're just weak. And then she ices Badagadi, and she's just like, after getting destroyed by Badagadi herself, I don't know how she was still conscious, but she's pretty strong. So she's like saint tier, right? So she's like, oh my word, that's crazy. Okay, he's the real deal. I'm gonna just head back home.
Yep.
Yeah, in shame. And then she kind of that like drives her to be like an actual rival. But then it was like, and she will become a rival to Eris. But that's another story for another day. I'm just like, oh, what a cool thing you did, light novel. It does that a couple times. Where I think recently it was like, it's not been quite as cool. It's like, it's done that like twice in like really short succession. It's like, oh, Roxy became a professor at the university, but that's a story for another time. And then they explained it, and you're just like, man, that really wasn't that like long a story, but okay, sure. And then it's like, oh, Rudy's also knows who Susanna is. But that's a story for another time. And then like talked about that later.
You know what? Okay, cool. I think this Eris Nina one is gonna be quite the story, isn't it? I actually went back and I reread these Eris chapters just because this is stuff that's not in the anime, so I was like, well, let me refresh on it. That line also stood out to me. It's a story for another time. I don't know what it is about it. It's just so like, it's so fun to just hear it and be like,
it's so
something's coming. It's
yeah.
I don't know.
There's everybody. Okay, everybody's been. This is a bit of a tangent, but we love it. Everybody's been popping off about, oh, we're like, fantasy's back, Freewine's back, Freewine's goated, and we got Delicious Dungeon, or Dungeon Musashi, or whatever it's called, and then we've also got Princess Atelier coming out, not Princess, Witch Hat Atelier, whatever it's called. But it's so pog, it's so amazing. Like, real fantasy's back. I'm just like, guys, okay, I've not read those manga, fair play. They look amazing. We should. But the GOAT is Magus of the Library. Magus Library is a great manga. And I've been kind of holding off on reading the two most recent volumes because I kind of want to read them and then make a video about it. But it's going to be like it's going to end up being like a Blue Eye Samurai where it's like 20 minutes long and it's like a lot of editing and a lot of work. But it does a really cool thing because it's like all about literature as well as like being a fantasy. And so it kind of makes a lot of meta comments like this. And it's like, and here the rivalry has begun between the main hero and villain. And you're just like, wait, that person's the villain? I thought they were like their best friend. Like, and it just reveals this and stuff in like a meta. It's like an announcer coming to you and spoiling the story. And it's like, what's going on here? It's crazy. This is kind of a similar thing where it's like meta. It's like, well, you just spoiled to me the story. I mean, I could have guessed that, but you just made it really explicit. Like, but it's kind of cool at the same time. So,
yeah, I guess an example I thought of, which isn't definitely not as explicit as that, because they don't spoil anything here, but it's when in the Chimera Ant arc, the best arc in all the fiction ever in Hunter x Hunter, when
Yeah.
Komugi steps in and they're like, the king has no idea what this girl is going to influence his fate. And it's like, what? This random little girl is going to like influence this great king of the ants? Like, it doesn't make any sense, but it's so exciting. It's like, oh, what's going to happen here? It is. It's just
It's
so
almost
fun
like,
whenever that happens.
yeah. I mean, yeah, and if you're familiar with trips, it's like, okay, they spend enough time on this girl, just like, and to show her that she looks different. She's got an anime style, but like when it like announces it, it's probably way cooler in the manga because announcing is cooler when you read it, not when you hear it and you're like, ugh. Actually, no, that was a great storyline in Hunter x Hunter. I'll give you that.
Excellent.
Yeah. Anyway, oh yeah. So I'm like Eris maybe going down like a dark path. So like I've got off past the Nina stuff, and now we're talking about like Eris.
Okay, wait a minute.
Chapter.
Before we get to that, I want to talk about I have two things about the Eris stuff that you were just talking about. One of them is the meta of like having an Eris chapter interspersed with other stuff that isn't an Eris chapter. And I guess also the titling of the chapters themselves, where it's like Mad Dog themed, I guess, or like Beast themed, and they're like specifically. I know one is like the Mad Dog Rages or something, which I think that's like really cool. But I think it's interesting to kind of have these parallel storylines and generally have an Eris chapter toward the end of the volume, where it's like we're catching up with Rudeus and we're seeing all of his life and everything, and he's not even thinking about Eris at all. But then at the end of the volume, we get like, this is Eris. All she is thinking about is like Rudeus and Orsted and like what's going on there. And we're like also following that storyline. It's like, how are these going to converge? Like, what's going on here? Like, are they ever going to meet again? Like, what is the
Well, it's crazy because they're so close to each other on the world map. That's the crazy thing, because you're just like, man, Nina like traveled there in like a month or something like that. And you're just like, dude, they're like next door neighbors as far as this map is concerned, right? And yeah, I'm continuing what you're saying. I've got something to say about it, but
to me, I like the meta of building up this like you're building not tension, I guess, or like you're building something, expectations, by using the meta of having two stories going in parallel, and they're both like but they're both like one of them is not thinking about the other at all, but the other one is only thinking about the other. And it's like, eventually something's going to happen here, but we don't know what quite yet. And I think it's kind of, I like the meta of it. Like it's firstly, just the reason I'm saying that is that the anime doesn't do this, right? This stuff has been completely cut out, obviously, from the anime. I think this is done for a good effect that they can, because I know where this goes, obviously, and I think there's a better way to kind of handle this maybe, but it's very different, that's for sure. This meta thing is only something you can do in the light novel, I guess. Yeah, anyway. That's my first thing. I don't know if you have anything you want to say about that, Bacon, but I have one more thing I want to talk about.
Yeah, so also about the meta thing. Yeah, that's a contrast, but I think it's almost placed perfectly, at least for me, emotionally, where I'm like, oh, I want to see what's happening with Rudeus. That you kind of forget about Eris. You're like, Eris, back window. Don't need to think about her. I'm focused on now. This is hype stuff. And then it pops in, it's like, there's a bit of Eris. And it's like, oh, I forgot about this. You know, like when it's on your mind, you're like, oh, what happened to Eris? What happened to Eris? I want to see what she's up to. No whispers, nothing. And then the author's just like, now you get it. And I'm just like, oh, this is peak. And you see, like, and I think that's like the more meta thing. It's like, it's like he's like giving you bits when you want it, and then linking into like stuff that happened early in the volume. Like at the end, there's the whole Nina stuff. It's like at the end of volume 10, I think, and then like it says, "Oh well, this is what happened." I'm just like, initially I was just like, "What? Who's Nina? Is she gonna turn up? Is this like present day?" And it's like, "Oh no, it's in the past," and it's like, so that's one thing. Move on to your second point.
My second point is quite a more general point, which I think the light novel does significantly well. And I think it's because you get a lot more dialogue and you get a lot more internal thoughts, especially for Rudeus. It's the descriptions of, or like the hints at Orsted's reputation. And the reason I thought of this when you said that is when, for instance, when the sword god, as soon as Eris mentions Orsted, or like wanted to beat the dragon god, you kind of get this reaction from him, and it's like no one else around him knows, but this powerful person knows who Orsted is, and it's like Orsted clearly has a reputation where the most powerful swordsman in the world is like, I am nothing to this man, and it's like you're slowly building. Like there's other things too that happen in this. Like when Batagati, for instance, he talks, like everyone is kind of shocked, where it's like he managed to like damage the dragon god's skin. Like, are you sure? Like that gets brought up a few times, and it's like you're really building this character of Orsted to like
almost after the fact. It's like because you got the dragon god, but then the amount of people who know he's called Orsted is different. So when they mention Orsted and they recognize it, 'cause if you mention the dragon god, people are like, does he exist? I mean, I know he exists. I didn't really know.
Yeah, it's
And
like on the Great
then
Powers or
like,
whatever, but like who is
yeah,
he? You know, like
who is he really? But then like when they know who he is, and like, oh my word, this is crazy. And I think, yeah, there was something also like Orsted's names comes a lot when they're using the teleportation stuff as well. And I really like it's made such some more clever. It's like, okay, yeah, like you have that cool bit in the anime where you're like, oh my word, that's Orsted clothes. But I didn't quite lock it that this is, of course, this is what Orsted uses, but it's made so much more clear. But then like Rudeus is just like, okay, well, what happens if I bump into Orsted here? Like, I'm gonna die, right? Like, this is
yeah,
what's gonna happen. I need to somehow like be like, hey, I'm friends with Nanahoshi. We're cool. Don't kill me, please.
yep,
Kind of thing, right? Like, he's like thinking of these things where it's like he's kind of skirting the rules, and you're just like, yeah,
yep.
like I think he's like, do I leave stuff in here? No, but then Orsted comes back, and then I can't have that or whatever.
I think
Yeah, no,
there's
it's
also
fun.
something interesting about like when he picks up the jacket, because actually I did also read part of volume 11, the stuff where they're traveling, because there's a lot of differences there. Um, the
Oh, tons.
yeah, I think it's kind of interesting to also think of how we've seen Orsted yeah, we've seen him once, and he's kind of portrayed in that one interaction we had as like this kind of all powerful kind of like crazy antagonist, I guess. Not antagonist necessarily, but he like killed Rudy and then brought him back to life or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like this grand figure, but now we're like seeing his jacket
That
or
knows so
whatever.
much because he's like the first person he's the only person that knows who the man god is.
Yeah, he's
I
very
mean, even
knowledgeable.
Badagard, he doesn't remember who the man god is, right? Like he feels like, oh, like for such a long time, you're kind of almost okay in a meta way. You're like stuck in the same world that Rudy says, and you're kind of going along with the play thing, and you're just like, oh yeah, we got to get Rigid's PR back online. We've got to
There's so many
all this
parallel
stuff. Like you're
missions.
getting
Yeah.
carried, you're getting carried away with the adventure, and then also comes back as like, hold up. Don't forget about this that this is an isekai, and we actually use the fact that this is an isekai as a core part of the story, right? It kind of brings you back down to ground, and you're like, oh my word, right? And it kind of gets more explicit from there. And you kind of don't really, yeah. Like anyway, sorry, I cut you off, but
No, my grand point here, Bacon, is that this is
yeah,
I just find this jacket scene so interesting because it just I
yeah,
think like just Rudeus talking about how like Orsted has to think about his clothing and stuff, and like when he's in the hot weather, he has to like take it off and stuff, and it's like it's very it
mm,
brings this like godlike figure down to like, oh, he has to like decide whether to take a jacket or not. Like it's a small thing,
yeah.
but it's just funny to me to think about.
Yeah, but to me also it characterizes him as quite meticulous,
Yes,
like
sure.
Orsted. Like he's like Rudy, where he's thinking about all these things.
Hmm.
And he's very smart. You know, I didn't get that impression that he's human, but I mean, now you say it makes
Well,
perfect
not
sense. But my
necessarily
impression
human,
from it,
but like he thinks
well, it
he's just
humanizes
like
him. Yeah,
yeah, kind of humanizes him a little bit, but not
yeah.
necessarily. It's just a funny
No,
thing.
that's a great point. That's just not what I thought. Sorry, that was just yeah.
No, but I like the
What I thought
meticulous
was like,
element.
wow, he's like planning. You don't know where's Orsted gonna turn up. What is he doing? What is he cooking, bro? I mean, I don't
Mm.
even know what Orsted. What is Orsted's overall goals? I don't even know. Right? I
Hmm.
can't remember.
What do we know?
It's
We
not
know
really
that
been.
he traveled around with Nanahoshi.
Yeah,
And what else do we know? He beat up Galfarian, who knows how long ago when he was younger. Um, uh,
Galfarian?
oh, the
Oh
sword
yeah,
god, the
yeah,
sword
yeah.
god.
The Sword God, the Sword God. Yeah, 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 yeah. We know
Yep.
that.
We know the
Anyway,
Batagard, he knows of him. A bunch of we have a
yeah,
small details, you know. But where's this going? Who
yeah.
knows?
Anyway, I kind of want to get back onto this Eris
Yes,
point.
yes.
Um, is that I thought this was very harrowing, the second part, because it seems like Eris is almost going down a dark path where something that it's scary because it's almost told through the eyes of Ghislaine at some point, where it's like what was it? There was a chilling moment where the Sword God was like, oh, there's so many reveals because like
Hmm.
Ghislaine's another character. I'm like, oh, Ghislaine's cool, but like Rigid, we really don't know much about her. What was made apparent is that Ghislaine is actually an idiot. I think
Hmm.
she's actually stupid. Like, I didn't get this before. I thought she was like
Yeah.
reasonably intelligent, but not educated. But here, it's like the Sword God is just like, oh, I need to remember. I need to make it super clear when I'm talking to this idiot
Yeah.
what I actually mean. I'm just like, I was kind of felt bad for her. I don't know if she's actually like actually stupid, but like, or she just needs simplistic language. But that's made kind of clear. But it's kind of like,
Yeah. I think it is very I think it's made clear that even when you first meet her and she is with Rudy with Eris in whatever their place was
she
back
doesn't really
in
understand language, does she? Yeah,
not yeah,
looking
like
back on it.
there is a lot of things she interprets literally. She like talks about her stories when she would like I think there was a story where she didn't know what was like good food and bad food, and she like ate poop or something like that. I vaguely remember.
Yeah. She
There's
ate. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think she is, and also we learn about like when she was in the village with her, or like when we go to the village that she was from, we learn that she was like very feral and she was like cast out and
Yes.
like taken away by
But
someone.
she also wasn't good.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
what was a recent revelation. It's like, oh, she wasn't actually like. I think it was from um the princesses. Like they like mentioned that like, oh yeah, she wasn't good at anything, so she had to leave.
Yeah,
I was like, that's crazy. Like she had no talent for it. That's crazy.
yep. So yeah, I think she is, yeah, not the brightest
But
person.
anyway, yeah. But the thing is, she's kind of come like I okay. Now I'm saying it, but it kind of almost reminds me of like almost like a prologue Thorfinn in a way, where it's like they're so determined on this one goal that they get
Mm,
really strong because of it. But Ghislaine's kind of snapped out of it. There's like a chilling moment where the sword god is like, "You've really softened up. You could be emperor tier now if if
mm.
you really tried." And then it kind of goes on where like Ghislaine's like, "Yeah, I could have been, but I learned actually how to read." Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah.
gained a lot, but then it's kind of like that construct with like Eris, and you're just like, I guess Ghislaine's not smart enough to to like help guide Eris at this point, right? And
Mm,
so it's like you could be like Eris is just being turned into like a murder machine, and this will fester. And then you're just like, well, if she turns up and Rudeus is like married to not only just one person but two other people, that's not her. Dude, that's gonna
mm.
be crazy, right? Like that's gonna be
Yeah.
a big issue. Um, uh, like yeah, um, yeah, and then he's like recruiting all the North God style. I think yeah, when you talk about that dog stuff, I'm thinking of that North God style where it's
Mm,
like I imagine, I feel like surely Eris is going to be really good at North God style. I feel like that's totally like her vibe,
mm.
not Sword God style or Water God style. So
True,
that'd be
maybe.
interesting. And it's like, who's he trying to convince? Was it trying to convince Ghislaine? No, I don't think Ghislaine would have cared. But the Sword God was trying to convince someone that is like it's okay that he hires this peacock dude for it because
I think he was talking
yeah
to Ghislaine about it. I think. Um,
yeah but like someone was offended that like why are you using North Coast style, you can't use North Coast style. I don't think it was Ghislaine. I think it was someone else
Actually,
surely.
maybe because I remember the context was that, like, the explanation is that like Orsted knows all these things, and if you want to ever get a shot at
Yeah,
actually fighting him, like you have to at least know them because he's going to use them against you as well. Um,
yeah, which I thought was interesting.
mhm.
Yeah, like yeah, the North, the Sword God is like super practical, doesn't have any reverence for anything at all.
Yeah, I am
um
curious. What do you think
which
about
is
like,
interesting how these
Yeah, like
yeah
what's your
he
characterization
seems
of the North of the
he
Sword
seems
God?
completely Machiavellian. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's like, okay, you have the desire to do it. I will train you how to kill how to kill the guy because I also want to kill the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will train you to be the strongest person. I'd care for nothing else. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like he uses your worst traits against you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and yeah, like almost crafting you to be the strongest person. It's very malicious and doesn't care about your personal growth at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Very interesting.
because he knows, but that's because he knows any personal growth is antithetical to your goal. So
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, he feels like so yeah. Okay, actually, I made a point about this. Everybody that does this sword stuff seems to be dumb. Is he
Mm-hmm.
dumb? Like okay, so what did I say? It's like okay, Ghislaine being potentially sword empress is an interesting thought, but this came at the cost of anything, and everything else. This calls into question on how is the Soul God this intelligent? It seems,
Mm-hmm.
it's quite. It doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. Like,
So you're saying that it's interesting that the Sword God is the most powerful of this Sword God style.
yes,
But
and
seems
he's
to
also
be
the most wise.
he is very, yeah, exactly, he's also the most wise, which shows that he's probably lived a life beyond this like Sword God stuff somehow. And
Yes,
also,
but
for
then how has
instance,
he gotten that strong
he has
if
a
he's
kid,
lived the
right?
life beyond it?
He has
Oh,
Nina's
does
his
he?
daughter, right?
Oh,
So
Nina's his daughter, of course.
yeah, so it's like he
Oh,
clearly has had a
yes.
life.
Yeah. Okay.
It's interesting.
Okay. But then, yeah, then it talks about how he used to be Saint Tyr and he also fought Orsted, and then, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I made another point. It's like maybe it's because he kind of talks about this, like find it yourself. Like he's like, I am training Eris by not training her because she'll figure out herself. She's got to figure out like once you get to this, like you can't just train someone to get past King Tier or whatever or Saint Tier. I think that's where
Mm-hmm.
Eris is at the moment. They have to kind of figure out how to get past there themselves. Is is um is Ghislaine king tier? I forget.
She is
She is,
king,
right?
and she could become an emperor if she dedicated herself. But yeah.
Yes, yes. But it's
Um.
made pretty clear on that Eris is more talented than her. Um,
Sure.
so
I guess one
so Eris
one. Yeah. Go
could
ahead. Go
become
ahead.
sword god herself. That maybe is the final point.
Interesting.
Yeah, but then there's also made a big deal that these tiers don't actually matter.
Mm.
Because like that's the whole thing. It's like in volume 13, like Rudeus instantly is no able to do a king tier magic spell. He just needs the right words. So it's just like, oh yeah, this is like stone cannon. Boop, thunder. Full of thunder. Lightning
Okay.
and the thunder.
True.
Yeah, so yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like gotta give another Vinland Saga reference when Thorkel is like it kind of talks about like when he is it's like Thorkel like mugs off like power scalers and the people who like death battle, which is me. Where it's kind of like it's like Knut's like who's gonna win? Like, well, surely Thorfinn's gonna win because you beat Askeladd and Thorfinn beat you, and Thorkel's like, oh no, also they both beat you, so we don't know who's gonna win. And it's like Thorkel's like, don't bring that stupid stuff here. It's a 1-1 duel, so anybody can be anybody at any point, right? It's like a matter of percentages, right? Anybody can be anybody at the same time. It's kind of like the same thing. It's like, you may have some person who's not officially like emperor tier, but they know all the stuff to be emperor tier. They've just not done it. It's like Freerun, all right? Here's a better. When Freerun like hasn't passed the mage exam, but she's clearly stronger than any other mage in this bloody world, apart from the golden-haired elf girl, right? So she's clearly like tier 15 billion magician, but then they're like, but she's not officially, according to our license, 15 billion tier magician. So, yeah, sorry. What was I saying? I was saying something.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh yeah. So you have to find your inner peace. It's like Poe in Kung Fu Panda 2. I'm making all the references here. He has to find his own inner peace, and that's what Eris has to do. She has to find how to get past sort of. But then she's getting trained in the other styles. So,
all right. Wait. I am
eventually get to a certain
curious.
level.
Because we are talking about 13 a little bit. Have you read any Eris stuff in 13?
Oh, Pog, there's Eris stuff in
Oh,
13.
No. Okay. Don't worry. We weren't talking about it. All right.
Yeah.
So one thing you were saying about the training, I just had a thought when I was reading. I thought it was kind of cool. It's a very short section where Eris is. I think it's from Eris's perspective, where she's reflecting on how
Also
difficult.
This is the weird thing because she's not in the room where like Ghislaine is talking.
Oh, sure.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there is like there's like okay, let's go. Let me write this down so I don't forget. Okay, there's a few interesting things in this light novel, which maybe I'm just haven't thought about enough, like to consciously think what's going on here. But sometimes there's direct first person point of views. A lot of the time, Rudeus' stuff is direct first person point of view. He's speaking about himself and like it's all going on like that. Sometimes there's perspective chapters, but they're written from the third person perspective, kind of, where it's like you're following Eris and clearly we're inside Eris's head, but it's like a narrator who is saying like Eris thought this in this moment and blah blah blah. That I've noticed as well. And I think sometimes there's also just third person, like you're not in anyone's perspective, and I think you're just like following what's going on.
Yeah, like when Badigadi's storming through all the places, it's very zoomed out. But it was like everybody. I just imagine everybody's on the phone. Ring, 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 ring.
Yeah.
Guys, there's like an avalanche. There's a nuke incoming, and everybody's just like, "It's already past us," or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like a Top Gun Maverick scene at some point, or whatever.
But I guess I don't read many books. Okay.
Yeah.
Is this I don't know. Is this a common thing where you're just switching so much between the styles of writing, or like I don't know.
I think there's definitely perspective change of character change. Yeah, but going so when you do English lit, let me pull my English lit back for me.
Yes.
Yeah, so you have like third person omniscient perspective, which is like the narrator that is an objective narrator that knows everything.
Yeah,
refers to everything.
Hunter.
Then you have and then you have something like often I don't. So if it's first person like perspective, say like you're reading Harry Potter, right? Has Harry Potter is probably written in a third person lens, like it talks about Harry, not me, right? That's when I would say third person, but it's kind of still from Harry's perspective, if that makes sense. I don't think Harry Potter would have like an unreliable narrator, but yes. So a better example I can think of is Percy Jackson. That's first person, but then sometimes it will switch to other characters.
Interesting.
If you can't tell, I don't read either because I'm pulling all like children, kids, teen books. But yeah, so it'll change character, and it's like, say Annabeth. Here's not Percy. This is the other character. Here's her perspective.
Sure.
Switching from third person to first person, yeah, it would be seen as a tacky writing thing if it's not done explicitly. Like they're not consistent. And I do wonder if I don't think it happened in that Eris chapter, so that's probably like quote unquote bad prose or whatever. Like it goes from Eris's third person point of view. Like, but yeah, like yeah, so that was it does third person Eris, it sometimes does first person Rudeus.
Yeah, I
I feel like when
personally,
it's Rudeus, it's always first person. But then when it talks about someone else
yeah.
that's not Rudy, then it's third person.
I wonder if
But
there
then
is like
sometimes
some
it'll
pattern to
switch.
it. The thing is, I find it so hard to keep track of. I just never bother. Like, not like when I'm
Yeah.
reading, I don't even think about this until like, like I guess if I think explicitly, I can remember. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Often we'll say like it's a bit hard also when it's like an audiobook because it's like the formatting makes it more clear when you read it. Like
yeah, sure,
particularly when it's like I'm doing an AI reading like there's points where like you have like the like I get lost in dialogue because I don't know who's talking as the same robotic
yes,
voice, and you don't have the punctuation, and then sometimes it also misses the like the dot dot dot. Like I must have missed a ton of
absolutely,
dot dot dots. Like it
yep.
will skip those over, and then it does the sound effects. There was one where like when Sophie's giving birth, she's going kind of thing, right? But he goes and then gh. So
Very, very
yeah,
true. Oh my
um,
goodness.
so yeah,
You know what
it's
I love about the audiobooks though? The laughing. Like whenever Batagard is like,
oh,
yeah, it's great.
yeah, yeah,
That's like his voice in
and,
my head for some reason. I don't know why.
yeah.
Um,
And I think I mentioned this last time, but it always says sure in the same way, and it's just like an overly
yeah.
enthusiastic. It's like Rudeus is depressed. Sure.
Yep.
So yeah, no,
The joys of
it's quite
AI.
funny. Yeah, no, it is.
Okay. Bacon, back to my actual
Um,
point here. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Sorry.
there was a cute part of this Eris chapter, where she's talking about the different ways that she was taught. And she talks about how
Yeah,
Ghislaine, she never really liked the way Ghislaine taught her because Ghislaine couldn't explain stuff to her. Or she kept telling her to kind of, I'm trying to think exactly what it was, but it's like Ghislaine kept telling her to think about like what I'm doing and try and do that or something. And then I
yeah,
think she said that Rudeus would then was like her next master, and Rudeus would tell her to kind of do, but also think or something like that. And then I just can't even explain this, but then she talked about Galfarian and was like Galfarian's kind of like merging both of these two together.
Oh, I didn't quite catch that, but what I definitely did catch is like Eris doesn't think she's smart, and this is
Yes,
made really
exactly.
obvious in multiple points. It's like she's like, man, I didn't. It's not that I didn't want to do the thinking. It's just that I know I'm not as smart as Rudy, and there's no point because he's so much smarter than me. I don't like thinking, and it's made even more clear where it's like she doesn't like thinking. She doesn't like thinking. That means she's also not processing her feelings, right?
Yeah.
And actually like growing as a person. And yeah, that's why I keep on saying she's probably going down like a dark path. But yeah, like so Galfarian is merging these two styles. And this is one thing I was confused. It's like, is Ghislaine still training her? I think she is sparring with her. That's mentioned in the Nina chapter because Ghislaine is the only person that likes Eris. But
I think it's more
um
like I think I would assume based on what I read today, like Ghislaine is probably just hanging around and is kind of like a mentor figure to Eris in the situation, but I don't think that she's here explicitly training. Um,
yeah.
but I guess we'll see.
But yeah, it's like, but then also then you get it gets revealed that Ghislaine is an idiot, and you're just like, well, what are you,
Mm,
Ghislaine? Like, what are you doing? Like, you're useless. But
mm.
then it's also revealed like in Paul's party later. It's like, man, I forgot this note because it was in the anime, but it's like, yeah, whenever we had an issue, we just asked Ghislaine to choose, and she always chose the right one.
True.
And then it's something like where Tao Han's just like, yeah, she was useless apart from that. I was like, oh my word, jeez, like, man, I guess Ghislaine was actually. Maybe Ghislaine must have got like way stronger after the party disbanded, basically,
Maybe. I
or
do
something like
feel like
that.
she was like I think she was pretty strong though back then. There's like some stuff I think they hinted
Okay,
at.
but but the thing like this is another thing because like Paul seems to go up a level. I guess he's advanced in all three areas, which is
Sure.
uncommon. But he's not even a saint in any area, and that's kind of like power crept straight away. But then he's
Mm-hmm.
fighting the Hydra, and he's actually really really sick. So I don't know if he's like underestimated,
Mm-hmm.
or um, or it's because of his special blade he's got. But then like as soon as you meet Ghislaine, you're just like, well she was saint tier, right? Or was she king tier when you meet her? I can't remember.
King tier.
She was king tier, like instantly. Like that's the thing. It's like she's like two levels above Paul, which is crazy, right? Like so you'd
Mm-hmm.
expect she'd be able to beat him or something like that. But maybe, but like that's the thing where it's like it's not really true because Paul maybe he's on her level. I don't know, but sometimes it will pop in and like they'll tell you it's like yeah this person's stronger than this person. But I think that's actually
Mm-hmm.
mostly Rudy, right? That's mostly unreliable. So anyway,
Yeah.
yeah,
I guess
bit of a fact check.
from like my perspective, I guess, Ghislaine is very strong. She's probably a very good fighter in
Shoot 'em.
terms of the Sword God style, but the Sword God style is a very, very simple style where it's really focused on the Sword of Light or whatever they call it, where it's like
Yeah,
a
they've only
very
got one
straightforward,
slash.
yeah, you slash once and it's over, but it's a very, you gotta obviously train and get it really good, and you gotta be very
It's almost
quick
Japanese.
to,
It almost feels like
sure, yeah,
like
very
when I
much.
imagine kendo, they're like, well, it's all about that respect, as
Absolutely.
a
What, Logan
some
Paul?
pool brother would say. Yeah,
What a
I'll go.
reference.
I'll go
Okay.
pool.
Yep.
See, it's
But
a thing.
okay. So we have on the other hand we have Paul, who is very much a he will do whatever he needs to win. He has all three styles. He can defend, he can attack, he can do very strange things.
Yeah,
Like for instance when he's fighting Rudy in that one when they meet up again in Millis, I think
he
Rudy
goes
describes
full
him as like a dog or
doggo
something.
mode.
Yeah, it's like it's
Yeah,
he'll
yeah,
do
yeah.
anything. So I think if I were to guess, just my power scaling here, and also the fact that Paul knows Ghislaine and how she fights, obviously, because they've been in a party
Yeah,
together. I would
and
assume
Glenn's
that
dumb.
yes, that's the other thing that Ghislaine is not necessarily the brightest person. I would assume that if I think Ghislaine would probably win immediately. However, if she didn't win immediately, I think Paul is almost guaranteed to win. Like a drawn out battle, I think Paul
Yeah,
would just win. But straight away, I feel like
yeah.
Ghislaine has to win because of just the sort of
But
light.
then you're also like, well, against that Hydra, Ghislaine would have been so OP because she just teleports around the place, slicing all
Yeah,
its heads
perhaps.
off at
Yeah.
once. Probably she could probably Oko it herself, kind of thing, right? Probably
Hmm.
not, but a kind of vibe. Like she could have probably like,
I feel like either like someone like Elaine or someone like Rudeus, I think they would have done very well against that Hydra. Um, yeah.
yeah. But it's almost like it countered Rudeus, who was OP, and then Paul had to pick up the slack. And Paul's good, but he's not that as good as the other ones, right? And so
Hmm.
yeah, and that's why he died because we smartly made the story not have all the OP characters around him and counted Rudeus at the last moment. But it's kind of related because now he's researching it, so it's okay.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, we'll get on to that. I
Yep.
feel like what was your thing about? You had another point about the sword guard and like Eris's perspective.
No, it was more about their style. I just thought it was cute how
Yeah.
she thinks of Ghislaine and Rudeus kind of as equals in terms of having shaped her.
Yeah.
And she even talks about how Rudeus was probably a bit like better suited to her as well because he kind of showed how to do it and explained it and was like try and do it. Because it's really cute. It also ties. I don't think I even mentioned this last time, but I definitely mentioned this when I talked with Kyle, which is that when Eris had her interaction with the dragon god back in Turning Point 2, she has this moment afterwards where everyone, like, Rudeus knocked out, Rudy's dead, and she's screaming for help from everyone. She goes, like, Rudeus, Ghislaine, she even calls for Paul and everything, and it's, like, it's really interesting that she
Does she call for Paul?
I think she
calls
does, yeah.
Soros, right?
Yeah, like, she's, like, grandfather, mother. I think she, like, lists a bunch of people. It was kind of interesting to see the order that she did them, and I think Rudeus was first, but obviously that would be because Rudeus is, like, right there, you know, but yeah, and it just I love how much that Eris respects and thinks of Rudeus, I guess. For just despite comparatively to how little time she's had with Rudeus compared to like Ghislaine, how she still thinks about him a lot. I think it's cool.
I think it's so interesting to see her style different because like she gets along with characters that Rudeus doesn't necessarily do because they're all doers. They're all silent, stoic people that don't talk much, but they do, right?
Yeah.
And that's how they communicate by doing stuff. And you do meet I have a couple uncles like this. Like I can't really sit down and have a chat with them. I love to have a chat, but I need to go do stuff with them. Like okay, it's not that they can't talk and they won't talk. They will talk. They'll joke around and stuff. It's just when you want to if you want to get to know them.
Yeah, you play table tennis or something.
You need to build up memories with them, right? They won't tell you what they're like. You know, it's definitely like a bit of an old and masculine thing, I think. But yeah, there's definitely doers of this world. And yeah, these people are definitely some of them, which I think is interesting. And I do wonder, Anyway, the sword god, he's interesting. He feels kind of not evil, but like neutral. Like
I have a question.
He doesn't have a moral compass, which makes him dangerous. Yeah.
Bacon. Now, firstly, have you seen any images of the sword god? Is he in like any covers or inside images or anything?
Because I listened to the audiobook at all these points, there weren't. I didn't see any images if there were.
Okay, I'm so curious.
Kind of sad. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you'll see pictures of him at some point, I'm sure. Yeah. But how old do you think he is?
Oh, that's a great question. I assumed that he was like he was 30s to 50s. Don't know why, but I assume that.
Interesting.
I didn't expect him to be like an old wise sage. I expect him to look like what was the North God style that they fought in the Beast Village? I almost
That guy.
that's what I
Yeah,
always
yeah,
think of when
yeah.
I expect him to look like that guy a little bit.
That's really interesting. I guess when I read
Yeah.
through, for some reason, I thought he was in his I thought he was old, like gray and like 70 years old or something.
That I
But
mean that way makes way more sense.
yeah.
But
However, I think you should know at
he
this
does have a
point, like
daughter
there
that's like
are,
16, that's like
yeah,
18
exactly.
though. So
Um,
but that
I
doesn't
think
really matter that
I
much in
think
this
he
one.
is in like his
So.
40s or something. Like he is like roughly, I think the age you were saying, and
Oh, that's crazy.
I
He's
think you
human,
have like
right?
pictures and stuff. I would assume so. I'm not sure if we know much about him, but I would assume so.
That's insane. If he's 14, he's that like he's sword god. I
Yeah.
feel like if you have to be like
I mean, I
basically all
guess
the
he could be
strong because
30s. I'm not certain, but
no
yeah.
no 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 but like to be that young, right? Like
Sure.
Ghislaine, like how old's Ghislaine? I guess she's in her 30s as well. So she's
Yeah.
king. And it mentions how Nina by the time she's 25, she could be emperor.
True.
I just want to say that Rudeus' spell, his stone cannon you shot at Badagadi was like an emperor level
True.
or imperial level.
Yep.
Imperial level, yeah. So that's So oh yeah, that was another thing where it's kind of like Rudeus is actually really really strong, but like but that was him going all out, I guess, on a stone cannon.
True.
But now he's officially
Time to charge
king
up.
tier water person. He learned the Saint tier sandstorm, which is just bigger than. Oh, it had like another word for sandstorm, which I thought was funny.
Crazy.
Kind of what, it's like here's these king tier spells. They're just bigger versions. But yeah. Anyway, what's the next one?
Yeah. What were we saying? Oh, okay, you're on your point. Go ahead. Go ahead. I feel like we didn't.
Peacock guy was cool.
Oh yes.
Let's move on. Let's move. The whole fight with the peacock guy was interesting. But yeah. Anyway.
Orba.
Next, I feel like the men that Norn bumped into. So now on the Norn perspective chapter.
Oh my goodness, Bacon.
Will appear again. This is like you had the fat guy, and then you had his like little lackey who was like tall and skinny. I feel like I must have seen them before, or they're like they're gonna reference somewhere. Cause like I feel like that's something like either like that's one of those light novel things. I feel like oh yeah they'll appear again, but maybe not.
You better remember their descriptions, I guess. No, you know what? I'm trying to remind you if they.
No, Copra. No, what's the name? Like it's kind of like no Copra.
No Copra, yeah, the horse.
Like, it's like they they were in Roxy's party. That's crazy. That was a great scene actually. Roxy and a Copra. I think I mentioned that last time though.
Yeah.
This was the biggest thing. This is like when just casually drops. This is the thing. Like it's such a casual drop. It's like, oh wait, Rudeus' son is alive and beat him in a fight, and his wife is still alive. I was like, that's insane. I thought they were dead.
Wait, what?
I was like,
wait, what is this?
No, am I wrong? Did I listen to it wrong?
You're absolutely wrong. Wait, Rujo's family is not alive. Where did you hear about this? What does that? Where did you
maybe I just
from?
didn't hear it right because it's like the Rude perspective, and he's just like, "Oh, I remember my son still beat me, and I'm trying to find him," or something like that. I thought that he killed him, but then I thought that got revealed that not happened. Okay.
No, absolutely not. You know, definitely.
Because they said his son beat him. His son beat him, and so he wasn't like. That's how he got brought up.
Well, yeah, his son beat him. Out of the whatever the curse that Laplace had put on him.
Oh, but then his son died.
But his son died in the battle in that fight. Yeah, he like killed his son.
Yeah, that was
crazy.
Okay. Sorry, I thought it was like the biggest wall drop.
That would be
no way there.
That would be crazy.
I was like, it was just from Rudy's perspective. Rudy's perspective. Okay. Well, that's not actually big, but that was a cool moment when Rigid just pops up. It's like, yo, get off the kid.
Yeah, this was a very cute chapter.
Roxy and Rigid meeting for the first time. It was kind of foreshadowed, where it's like Rigid was just like, your master wasn't nearly as cool as you think she is, and that's kind of a big thing of Volume 13, where it's like, oh, like just in general, it's like same thing with Sophie. Sophie was like, it's kind of not talked that much about, but it's kind of like in retrospect, it's like, wow, Rigid just yaps all the time about how great Roxy is, and then it's like Sophie's like, well, I'm not that jealous now. Thankfully, because you're not actually that. You're human. Thank goodness. Which is quite funny. But yeah, like it started off as like Roxy. She hates the color green. Green peppers. Worst thing ever.
Oh my god. What a line. You know what? I think I even tweeted that line out at some point. I don't know why that specific line. It's just so funny.
It's very funny. It's just very funny. It's just like like green is just an unlucky color in this world, which I think is interesting. Because then there's contrast with Rudeus later. But yeah, she's just like crippled by fear, and she's like, "I'm gonna kill you."
Yep.
But then there's all like, then Lilia comes in strong. Thank goodness, she's there. She's
the goat. We love Lilia, don't we?
Yeah. What was this? basically before okay, this is a line that I instantly get proven wrong, but at this point I'm just like, Elinalise comes off way worse than the light novel.
Hmm.
She's like less mature, less reasonable,
Yep.
much more sex
Yep.
crazed. Yeah, she's just absolute. She's a whack. Yeah, she is like the least respectable person. Not because she sleeps around a lot, but it's like she has like almost no redeeming qualities. This is because she like flip flops back and forth on whether to actually go with Rudeus to the Greyrat continent.
Hmm.
Because she has like, what was it? She like has sex with Cliff, and it's like, no, I can't go with you. And
Hmm.
then Rudy has to convince her when just before they had just made all these plans or whatever. I'm just like, yeah. I think you
I
could probably
no
twist and be just like, that's how strong her connection to Cliff is, which I
no no
still
no.
don't get. Oh, what? Okay.
I would no. I would
What?
say I love Elinalise is one of my ST characters easily. I like her relationship with Rudeus because
Yeah.
it's very they're it's so interesting because they're in different generations, right? She was in Paul's party. She is like Paul's like kind of
Yeah.
contemporary. Like
But she also says she's 50, but she's actually not 50, right?
I don't think we know her age at this point. She might be 50.
Yeah.
I could buy it. She's like
Well,
an elf or
well, she
whatever.
says it
So
early on that she's 50, but then it kind of calls into question later because she's like an elf, and it's like
yeah,
she could be super old. Like you don't know.
yeah, true.
And she seems to have a big history, which is like
Yeah.
hinted at more
Well,
later
yeah,
on.
she has
Like,
a grandchild at least, so um
yeah,
yeah. But what I was gonna say is that I like how despite being in a different generation, her and Rudy have a very well, I don't even know how to describe it, a very contemporary relationship. It feels like they are very
yeah.
good friends that kind of vibe with each other and they have a cool banter and dynamic and everything. And I like that
Yeah.
about Elinalise, where it doesn't feel like she's very put together sometimes, but I think it gels well with her interactions with Rudeus.
No, but that relationship seems to develop massively over their trip. Like this is
Sure, yeah.
I've written this just before the trip, and
Oh,
it's like
okay. Yeah.
they don't hang out with each other at all. It's made quite clear that like Rudius hasn't actually seen her in a while, and then
Mm-hmm.
like my impression of her is just like, yeah, she's kind of just here,
Mm-hmm.
and like then she like flip flops. She's like made all this stuff. She's planning to go by herself first of all,
Mm-hmm.
without Rudius, and then Rudius says, "I'm join along," and she's like, "Okay, I'll begrudgingly allow it." And then she's like, "No, Rudius, you got to go by yourself." After making all those plans,
Mm-hmm.
it was quite. Well, I just thought it was very funny. I'm just like, man, yeah, I do not know where she's at. But then as soon as they start traveling together, I'm just like, okay, this is great banter. I love this.
Mm-hmm.
Great dynamic. We're missing this a
Excellent.
little bit too much from the show. And then it gets even better when she's back with Paul and the party
Mm-hmm.
and all this stuff. So yeah.
Yep. I love the traveling chapters, Bacon. My goodness. They were so short, less than one episode in the anime. I wish we got the whole thing, but you know what? It's fine.
I understand what that was cuttable content.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
But not the characterization of them together, but
Mm-hmm.
like like the whole party and how just saving them from
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
bandits.
No, I
It
believe
is
that. Yeah.
that's cuttable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Bacon.
Yeah. Okay. So I said my next point is I take it back. Analyze and Ruzy Band are the
Okay.
best bits of dialogue in the series so far.
I'm
Feels
so
much more
glad.
genuine. Interested to think I criticize the light novel for having odd casual dialogue, but this is partly because I talked about this earlier. Rudius is overly formal, so it has a
Yes.
lack of odd casual dialogue. Because everything Rudius just doesn't have normal relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Yes. Yes. I have no more to say beyond that, but true.
Cool. Next thing I have is Zanoba and Ginger's relationship is also supremely screwed. Like it's screwed up. Like it's messed up. Like this is it's after this scene. This is weird. Where this is one of those other things where it's like the. Well, I guess we'll talk a little bit more about Lilia later, but it's like you have such a subservient.
Hey, how
My
about
impression is that. So my impression from the anime is that Ginger and Zanoba will eventually become an item.
mm,
That is not how I feel now in the light novel.
mm,
But there was a scene where somehow Ginger thinks Rudius is going overboard by not respecting Zanoba enough. She then disrespects Rudius. Then Zanoba gets really mad and almost kills
yeah,
her. Like
that
she
is
starts
true.
strangling her. And you're just like, oh my word, what's going on here? And then afterwards, like, yeah, it's like Rudius has to save her life basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, why did she come all the way up here? Like, I assumed she came up here initially because she's loyal, but she actually kind of likes him. But then here I'm just like, dude, that does not feel like I mean, I guess it's a different world and people have completely different cultural expectations, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, I was like, that's messed up relationship. But then it's also made it clear that like Ginger being there is really actually good for Julie. Uh,
Hmm.
so anyway, yeah.
Yeah, the Ginger is an interesting character. I think what we know about her at this point is that I think Zanoba's mother like tasked her with looking after
Hmm.
Zanoba. Um, it
He's the
is
12th
yeah.
rank.
I guess I would say I do agree with you. It is really I find it interesting. I guess we'll see where it goes. Let me think. What else can I say? I think Zanoba is a very interesting character. The fact that we just haven't ever had a like perspective of him. It's like he is because he is at times he's a very comedy character, right? And at times he has serious moments of like he is important to Rudeus's development because he is one of Rudeus's first ever friends, or like really good friends. So he's clearly very important, but we don't really understand him that well. Like what is going through his mind when he's like choking or like whatever he was doing to
Yeah.
Ginger.
Well,
It's
I think it's just
interesting.
more surprising because at this point he feels like he's becoming more normal, and particularly in volume 13, you're just like, okay, he's becoming
Yeah.
helpful.
Hmm.
He's not just an absolute caricature. He's an actual like he feels way more nuanced as a character. Like he's helping out with this, with um, with Nanahoshi's thing. He's made great progress on his like on the doll and stuff. Like he's actually becoming his own character and becoming useful, and not just like a meme,
Yeah, like
frankly.
he
And
used
then
to
when he
just care
reverts to
about
this,
dolls, right?
yeah,
Now he's
and
kind of like
and it's like, oh, he ripped. He's called the Head Ripper, and that's like a funny thing. But then here, it's like, oh my word, like he's still got that in him, and that's kind of scary, right? Like he would do this to Ginger. Like he's got such a weird,
I
yeah,
am
some messed
curious.
up stuff. But then he does a lot of funny stuff, which is like very royal. So like,
Yeah.
what is it like? When one of the cool bits was like when Rudeus goes around and asks everybody for advice what he should do on the Turning Point 3. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
and then Zanoba, I think I can't remember what Zanoba says, but he kind of like gives a bit more dismissive answer. It's just like,
He just like assumes
um,
Rudy will figure it out himself, I think.
yeah. But then he also kind of gives an answer initially to be like, oh, if you must have an answer from me, like it's kind of like cookie cutter from like his royal experience, basically, which is a bit
Hmm.
also screwed, I think. So yeah.
Yeah. I had something I was gonna. Oh, okay. I'm curious when you're reading the Zenoba Ginger scene you were just talking about when he like gets mad at her. Um, I don't remember because I haven't reread that. Was that portrayed comedically or was it played seriously? Do
Oh,
you
I
remember?
thought it was very
Okay,
serious.
no,
I didn't
that's
think it
what I
was
was
funny
hoping.
at
That's what
all.
I would
I
think
was
as
not.
well.
I was not.
No,
That
that's
was not
good.
my impression. Yeah.
I'm just asking because I don't remember it all. That is kind of
Because it's
interesting.
almost shocking
Yeah,
because you get over the comedy bit and then you're like, oh my word, he's actually like, yeah.
I think that it is important to. I'm curious. Before that scene, what did you think about Zenoba's history? Because he's obviously killed two people. Like when, like I think he killed his brother and then his wife, and he's killed people before. I'm just curious. Like, what do you ever think about that when you're like now that you've seen this Ginger scene? Do you think differently of him and be like, oh, maybe back then, like maybe there is something off about him, or like I don't know. I don't want to say too much. You know, what do you think? What's
Well,
any?
I just assumed that because since he's become friends with Rudy, like he's become a much more normal person.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
he's normalized. He's educated himself.
Yeah.
You know, what was his what was one of those things? He's also
I'm trying to think. I can also.
he meets someone again. Who does he meet again? And then he like Roxy. Yeah, when he meets Roxy again, he gets very
Hmm.
there's an interesting thing there, like when he apologized massively. And it's kinda like he must have treated her badly. Like I think he's grown a lot, right? And that's why this scene was surprising because he reverts back to his
Hmm.
his bad habits, his really bad habits. That's
Yep.
and then like there was also something like when uh what was it like Rudius was going to give him Lucy to hold or like show him Lucy, and then he was like, "Oh
Yeah.
no, I can't see her before she's 5." But I thought he was going to say initially, "Oh, don't show me it because I like killed babies in the past or whatever."
Sure. Yeah.
Um, but then there's a whole thing where like um, Julie's called Julie for a reason, right? So yeah.
Hmm.
Anyway, it's interesting. Yeah.
Okay. Just let's leave that there. That's okay. Cool. It's interview stuff. Um. Okay. I had one thing, but I don't know if it's gonna go too far back into what you were saying. But what's your
No
next
worries.
note about? I guess.
Cliff and Norn.
Okay. To actually perfect. Okay. So yeah, go ahead, and then we can talk about it.
Okay, yeah, Cliff and Norn scene was and chat were very nice in the church.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Norn's actually quite pious.
Hmm.
Kind of talks about that a bit more. Like, yeah, I guess I skipped over all the Norn chapters. Did I? Yeah,
Yeah. We
I
haven't
didn't make
talked
any
about
notes
them.
about that. Yeah, and then my next note is towel hand is gay. That's quite funny. Anyway,
Wait, we'll get to that. But this Norn stuff. Firstly,
yeah, I didn't make
this
note
is
of it.
one of the very few Norn point of view chapters that we get.
Dude,
That were
I,
cut.
I'm yeah, I'm okay. I'm not gonna lie, because I saw in the YouTube comments it was like, dude, that last like different extra chapter was crazy, and I was like,
Mm,
oh, that's another Eris one, because that's what I'm hyped on. Then when it was Norn, I was like, nah.
mm,
But then it was cool. It recovered. It recovered. It fumbled the bag, but then it
mm.
recovered. So
I think it's one of the best Norn chapters. The fact that Norn's whole thing, I guess, at this point has been about not being strong enough, right? And
yeah,
not being
yeah,
able
yeah.
to be useful, and that's why she's sent here, and that's why she can't go with Rudy, and blah blah blah. And
Builds into my imposter syndrome theory.
yes, exactly. I obviously, I made a a video about this scene as well. Or this scene is in the video. What I like about this scene is Norn's Norn realize she tries to help, right? She's praying.
Hmm.
She's like asking for please, this person and this person and this person, save all these people. And she's asking for too many people. And she's like, oh, but am I being too greedy? Like, is Millis gonna like,
No, no, okay, and that's such a real thought. I don't know.
yeah,
That was like, okay, as someone who grew up in a religious family, that's so like, I mean, yeah, God, I know you can do all this stuff, right? Because you're omnipotent, right? But this
mm,
was a bit selfish now. I don't know. Do I
yeah,
barter with you? And it's like, yeah, you're kind of not sure what to do there. That's a very, yeah, I don't know, that hit home for me actually.
yes, I agree. Um, and it is like it she's trying to do a selfless act here, but in her heart she believes that it's very selfish as well, because she's not doing it
Hmm.
because she thinks she's like, oh, this might actually make a difference. She's doing it because it makes her feel better, and she like
Yeah.
acknowledges that, and is like, it's just so sad. um I just really, I don't know, there's the it's very cute characterization of Norn, basically. That's what I like so much about it. Like, we're in her head, we're hearing her worries, we're hearing her feel like she's being selfish, even though she's not really, she really can't do anything. She's just trying to be, she's trying to do like a nice gesture, but she can't do anything better than that. I thought it was very cute. And
Mm.
then having Cliff kind of come along and have them talk, where I don't think we've had them talk
I'm a
before.
genius.
Yeah, exactly. And it shows he's like
Don't worry,
confidence
I'm a genius.
despite being in a similar situation to him, to her. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's very cute.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think ending,
Yeah. He
and
gave
she,
some good wisdom there as well. I can't remember. I feel like I should have quoted that, but that was good.
yeah, I think he would say stuff like, I think the general message was like, you need to, the reason that we are left behind are because we're not strong enough to defend ourselves, and we would be a nuisance if we were in the way. We don't necessarily have to get better through like getting stronger. We have to like get, like, for instance, he says, I'm getting better through knowledge, and I'm going to learn like the political stuff that's going on back in
Yes.
Miller, so that I can actually not be a nuisance. And I'm trying to build powerful allies and everything. I've got Rudeus, and like, I'm, because
Yeah.
people with powerful allies, they don't get harmed, and there's like better ways to fight than to just like kind of be strong.
Mm.
And I think he ends with like, I think Norn is like, what do you, like, okay, I understand all this, but then what do I do? And he's like, you try, you better yourself, you learn magic, you learn to fight even, and at the end of the day, you like pray to Millis. And there was a very cute bit at the end where it's like, I don't remember who is saying this. Maybe it's the narrator. No, I think I think it is the narrator who's saying this, isn't it? No, it's Norn. Sorry, it's through Norn's perspective. And she's like, if my brother had heard this, he'd like scoff. But like, I understand, and it was very cute, basically.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah.
think is it, and even talking what I've seen from Volume 13 with her practicing with the sword and the Norn fan club, which I thought was fun to see.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. Okay.
Norn is depicted as abundantly average. She is not special in any way, apart from one way, right? Which is mentioned when she gets out of her stupor with Rudeus. And Rudeus is like, man, I stayed like that for 30 years. She managed
Mm,
to somehow rationalize her way out of it when she's 10. She's way better than me, right?
mm-hmm,
And that's something that's implicit also in this chapter, but also her previous thing, where Norn's actually very mature. She's very emotional, but
mm-hmm,
she understands people quite well. We haven't had an Aisha chapter, but Aisha's always told that she's super smart. She can read a room well, and she kind of understands what's going on. But Norn seems to have a very self-reflective attitude that's very smart,
mm-hmm.
in a different way. Like she's intelligent in a very different way, and that's like her X factor as a character. But she's remarkably average, and she's aware of that, and that makes her an
Mm-hmm.
interesting character because everybody in this manga is like talented. um,
Yes.
apart from Nanahoshi, but even Nanahoshi's like actually quite talented, you know, right? Like,
Yeah, and yeah, she's like a genius designer and like engineer or whatever she's trying to do
yeah,
here. And
exactly, right? Like
yeah.
everybody's super smart or blessed child or you know super experienced or whatever, right? And then you got Norn who's just like, I'm here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah,
It's
your Norn video is like when I'm reading through villains, you're reading through villain science. Like I can't wait till I can watch this Hild video. That's like
mhm.
my equivalent. I'm like,
I do have to say, Bacon, the things you're saying now, you know, almost verbatim. So some of the stuff verbatim,
see,
Jesus,
like
that I
we're just on
say.
the same wavelengths. You're the
Yeah, it
same
is pretty
thing when you're like
crazy.
halfway through Villain Six. Like, I think Hild's like this. I'm just like, dude, I thought I was smart for thinking that one up. Well, okay,
Mm-hmm.
there we go.
No, this is
But
great.
yeah,
I love this so much.
anyway,
Yeah.
Talhand is gay.
So do they? What do
That
they? What do they say? Or is this a theory of yours? Or
okay, well, okay. I remember. Look, I was instantly on Talhand from the anime when they showed the scene of him looking at Rudeus's butt. I was
Mhm.
like, and there's a big deal, even made more now in the light novel that of Rudeus is actually very handsome.
Yeah, sure.
It,
I think like
it's
even
quite
Nina was
fun.
like she's surprised by how like muscular he was or something like out of because the way like Eris described him
Oh
was like
yeah,
always like this neat, not neat obviously, but like this
yeah.
kind of
I think it's his body language as well. Something.
sure, yeah, the body
Anyway,
language, yeah.
the first time where it's like Rudeus says he's like he's like I think he's describing his face, and it's easy to miss that it's actually Rudeus' perspective. But he's like he has Paul's strong jawline and
Yeah.
and Zenith's soft features and stuff like that. Not that handsome for this world, but quite handsome or something like that, right? Or like averagely handsome, something like that. Basically, not bigging himself up too much because that's part of his character. He actually doesn't think that much of himself, and that's always been this thing. Roxy also comments on this when Rudeus is like actually doesn't get it to his head, and that's why Roxy liked teaching him as opposed to Pax. Who Pax was like,
Mhm.
I'm a genius or whatever.
Yeah.
And then like Nanahoshi says like, oh, you look like a European supermodel, basically like. So then it's like oh, then Rudy's kind of like um says, well, yeah, I'm handsome for old world standards or whatever. If this
Mhm.
wasn't this world, I'd be handsome or something like that. And then as you go on, it's like no, like Sophie definitely thinks him very handsome, and
Mhm.
then Roxy definitely thinks he's very handsome, and
You
then
know
his
what it is?
build up is like, and then his meeting with Paul, and he's like, oh, Paul is really like he's the same height as Paul now, and then like you're like, man, well, Paul's a bit of a
Yeah.
Chad, so I imagine like Rudy's a bit of a Chad, and I'm just like, well, Taohan definitely like he doesn't look so much in the anime, but I'm like Taohan, he's checking him out. What can I say? And then it's also that's not actually that. I don't think there's an equivalent of that in the light novel. But what's made super obvious
Mhm.
later is like Talhan is just unaffected
Oh,
by
by the succubus?
the succubus,
Mhm.
and previously, Rudy's made some remarks like if you know the best people to go through this area would be gay men actually.
Mhm.
So
True.
something like that. So yeah, Talhan gay.
A
Not
very
said, but
interesting
said.
theory, Bacon.
Yeah, I know. I'm so big brain. I'm very proud of
Mhm.
myself right now.
Yeah. Um, okay, one thing you said that I just made me think of something is um, Rudeus's estimation of himself is very he never overestimates himself. Basically, he thinks he's like he doesn't think
Yeah.
he's very attractive or anything. He doesn't think he's very powerful at magic. Even he even at some point didn't think he like even I think it's it takes until the Batagati fight for him to realize that he has like a crazy amount of mana. Like before that, he's like, oh yeah, I thought
Yeah,
he was big, but I
exactly.
didn't realize it was like world class or anything. And it's like he's
Yeah,
constantly
exactly.
underestimating himself, which is, I think, again, ties back into what we said right at the beginning of Volume 1, where he's giving his backstory about how he tried, like, as soon as he got overconfident in his past life, like, he thought he was really good at computers and stuff, and then he started
Yes,
failing in life, and
yes,
he just never wants to make that mistake again.
yes.
And it
But
shows throughout this whole
that
thing.
that also has given him a lot of issues where he doesn't realize it, but
Yeah.
it's like people's perception of him assumes that he's like really arrogant because he doesn't Rudius assumes everybody else is thinks lowly of him. So
Yeah.
then Rudius doesn't like he has his awkward moments. Like I don't think this is a big moment, but like an example is like when he does the Emperor, he just doesn't realize how it comes across. So like when he does the King tier
Mm,
spell straight away, and Roxy makes a comment about how that feels bad.
yeah.
Like Rudius doesn't always realize that like what he's doing is so crazy that then ostracizes him from everybody else, which is like you know that's how this thing with Eris happened, right?
Hmm.
This is how he kind of got this reputation at the school, right? Like Rudy's like comments on it, like he is thinking about these things, and so as a reader, you can get tricked that okay, Rudy's just thinking about all these things, but he's actually not.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't realize that his imposter syndrome makes him seem ironically more arrogant.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I like that, Bacon. Okay.
Next thing, this is maybe me misreading again, but
Oh,
is Elinalise really tall?
I don't know actually. I don't think so. I mean, we've seen her in the anime,
She
right?
doesn't look like it from the pictures. Yeah, she doesn't seem in the anime. I know the anime they may change stuff. Maybe it's because Paul was on the ground and I didn't read that part. But there's one point where it's like Analyze was a head taller than Paul. I like read before that.
I
I
don't
didn't
think
see
so. Maybe? I don't know. I don't think so
it
though.
made like a big deal about him looking up at her, and then he got up and he was still looking up at her or something like that.
Well, I know
like,
when
"There's
he's
no way she's tall,
apologizing,
right?
he like grovels on the
He's on his
ground.
knees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, maybe I just misread that scene. I was like, this because like none of the art seems to suggest that. So anyway, I was like, that's crazy. I was like,
That would
that's
be
just
pretty
surprising.
crazy.
I was like, I didn't think she was like that. Like Ghislaine's that tall.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry, Ghislaine. Okay, I'm very proud of this one, but I read ahead, so I don't get to feel as proud.
Oh, okay.
But I was like, Rudy will get an arm from the doll to replace his. I called out. I thought it was just
what were you
hand.
up to?
I called out. This was just before they went into the thing, and I thought about, oh yeah, he loses his hand here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, he's gonna get that replaced by the doll. That's what the doll like. I completely forgot about the doll when I started reading this again. I'm like, why? Yeah, why are they doing this like spooky mansion? Why are we doing this like Ghostbuster chapter? Like it's useless. And then they're like, oh no, it's actually like a secret lair. I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense. Anyway, my next point is Rudy gives the most obvious asking for a friend story to Roxy when retelling his past. Second is like I don't think Paul made a comment about his two swords in the light novel, and I think now I think about it, I think we commented that in our anime chat where he said two swords are it's okay to have two swords, Rudy, or something like that. That's what he says.
Yeah.
The anime or something like that, right? And we're like, that's an anime new line.
It is, yeah.
And then okay, there's 2 points left, but the biggest point is Dillo is the GOAT.
Oh my god,
word.
I'm so glad.
I was so unironically happy when it survived.
Yep,
and then it buries in between them at the end of volume 12. And that's how it ends.
Goodness.
I'm just like, this is the greatest thing of all time. I'm so happy.
God, Bacon, you should go back to our discussion whenever I mentioned, oh, there was this armadillo. Did you guys notice it? And no one, you guys were like, oh, I didn't notice it. I'm like, oh, no, this is Dillo. I didn't even say it, but man, I love him.
Dillo is the GOAT. He is the armadillo. And then the next thing I had was like, Lucy is like Rudy. And then Rudy's like, nah, she's not like me. She doesn't understand Japanese. I'm just like, dude, that doesn't mean anything. But that's my volume 13 note so far. That's my one note. And then you had the Trent, where that Aisha was going.
Oh my goodness.
And then
wait, is
Rudy's
this
like,
volume 13 again?
Yes, volume 13.
Okay,
like, we need to kill it. We need to destroy this thing. And then Sophie comes in and is like, oh no, you can have pets with these things. And Rudy's like, But then like Aisha like pulled out her trump card where she's like, I know about your secret lair. And he's like, oh. I'm just like, well, I know it's like a holy relic, but like, I don't. It's so interesting. Yeah, the whole holy relic thing is like so more serious here, and it's so much more easier to take it serious because you're not actually seeing him do it. Like, it's because like framed through Rudy's perspective. That's like such a hard thing to do in the anime because you're just like, this is ridiculous.
It is.
But then like here, here it's like actually like, yeah. Anyway, I'm just like it. Yeah. Anyway, it'd be quite fun. When that reveal, because Sophie doesn't even know, does she? That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah, anyway. Yeah, I didn't comment on a lot of like the really big stuff. I kind of skipped over the whole Paul dying thing.
Oh yeah, you know. I mean, we talked about a lot of stuff, but I think if you want
the whole Sophie scene accepting Roxy, that's a great scene as well. And I would have liked 13
it's different
so
slightly. The whole pregnancy thing wasn't an element of like Roxy being pregnant and everything.
Oh yeah, the line lies, dirty scoundrel.
Yep,
that's crazy. But like, I also want to know why Elinalise did like what her past with that. I think Sophie is a bit of a goat, and so far in the light novel, she's not been reduced in character. Roxy has not been reduced in character either. I do wonder if I kind of hope, just so it's not just Rudeus being the center, that they somehow develop attraction towards each other. I don't know if that's like going to be a thing, but because it's so sex focused, I'm like, it feels kind of. Yeah, it feels a bit awkward to me still, but it kind of like it talks about that a bit, how awkward everybody feels still. But then also makes it come about 3 wives. I'm like, well, Eris there, but then Sarah's thing of this chapter. And I'm like, is Sarah's going to get in on this? But anyway, yeah, I don't know if that's not how sexuality works. You're not like, okay, I swing that way now, but
I mean, you might have never considered it before, and now, maybe you'd consider it. I
maybe
don't know.
we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Rudy's did mention he was looking for a threesome. I was like, well, there you go. That's one way of doing it.
True.
But yes, it's interesting. I think, yeah, what I like so far, and I'm like few, I'm just like, okay, they're not reduced in character. There's still actually a real major focus. We're spending a ton of focus on Volume 13 on real slice of life stuff. It's like all slice of life so far. Because you don't really have like anything to look forward to. Zenith is having a few pog moments. We're like, she's like doing weeds in the garden and stuff, and it's like it's not nearly as hopeless as I thought it would be. What else? Yeah, so that's like volume 13 so far for me. I like how I started this and I was like, I'm not going to talk about volume 13, but now I'm like, volume 13, let's go.
I mean, it's your first original stuff.
Yeah, I'm
but
excited.
my goodness, next time we're gonna have so much original stuff to talk about. But Bacon first. One small thing I think in volume 13, which I read I think at the end of our discussions, there was I don't want to spoil anything, but there was a scene where Rudy is like trying to test if Lucy came from this world. And he kept like surprising her with like phrases or something and be like, is she gonna like react? I thought that was really funny.
But then she was like, then he was like, there's no way an adult would keep this ruse up as a baby for this long.
Yeah.
Definitely not. But that was my instant thought. And then I was like, and then it like talked about it and I was like, okay, well maybe not. But it was like instantly as soon as she didn't cry, I was like, oh, it's like Rudy. And then Lily was like, Master Rudeus, this is like you when you were a kid. And she was like, oh, this is how it like maybe does that mean Paul was actually from another world?
Maybe. Okay. Now, I guess before we finish, there's a few. Let me see. We talked about the Eris stuff. Chapters. The traveling to Bagaret. We've talked a little about. Norn. Oh, about the Norn running into Rudeus at Esport. There was a cute thing. Well, we talked about this a little bit, but there was a very cute thing with the fact that Rudeus listens to her and isn't good at explaining himself, but from Norn's perspective, it's a different approach to like talking to her that she hasn't really experienced before, and that's why she connects with it so much. And I think she describes it as like everyone else when they're trying to help her, they're kind of doing it through like a way of like, oh, you need to be better, or like you're not like, it's like a criticizing approach to kind of trying to help her, whereas Rudeus is doing it from like a positive perspective, where it's like he's trying to say like good things and how she can be better, and like framed in a positive light. I think it's really interesting. It's an interesting pairing. Norn and Rudeus, they're very opposite characters, but they have they get on. Yeah, they get on very well.
And she's writing the book.
Yeah, wrote the book. True. Like she respects Rudeus a lot. It's so cute. I don't know. I like it a lot. That chapter was very cute. So there's that. The Norn praying chapter we talked about. Oh, this is probably the last important thing to kind of mention. The anime and the light novel. Sorry, the anime speeds up a lot through the post Paul death stuff. When Paul dies, there's a lot of Rudeus reflecting on his past life and being very depressed for a long time and just reflecting on everything basically. And a lot of that is, I think it's conveyed very well in the anime. A lot of people have an issue with it. I think it's done. This is like the prime example of doing it well through like visual storytelling rather than actually narrating it. But it's very explicit in the actual story though. Like, I guess, what do you think of that kind of post Paul death stuff in the light novel?
Yeah, I mean, I always think it's interesting when it's like bringing up, same with the Norn scene. I do feel like this Norn scene had a bigger impact on me in the anime. When she's like rethinking stuff, but I think that's maybe just because the first time I'm experiencing it.
Yeah,
but like
sure.
it's like so clear that like they are using this isekai premise very well. They allow you to forget it for a little bit and then yoink you back in. And here it's like Rudeus finally learns, like by the time he's like 40, like 16 years after the fact that his parents have died, like what it actually means to him, and how oh yeah, I probably should go to my parents' funeral.
Yeah.
Which is just a crazy thing. Like, I think he may have recognized it before, but he's like, I recognize I should have gone to it because now I'm kicked out of the house. But now he realizes, no, like, basically, the more he like talks about the past, the more you kind of realize how awful he was. Like, his brother used to come to see him. His mum used to do everything he said, asked for when he demanded it, right? Yeah, and it's like how his relationship deteriorated with them. Very retrospective, but yeah.
Yep, good stuff. That's it, Bacon. I got nothing else. Anything on your
Yeah.
end?
Do you have any more predictions?
Yeah, now would
Uh,
be a good
well,
time.
I'm
We
looking for
know.
the Eris chapter. I didn't read clearly far enough along. Good grief. Um,
True.
hmm. I was looking at the anime because I thought the Eris like I have like this like Mandela effect. I thought like the anime ended with like a footstep going over like snowy ground, and you'd be like, "Oh, who's that? Who's that next?" But I don't think it is.
Well,
Like it just shows.
yeah.
I don't think it just shows a lot of stuff people are doing. It's showing Eris looking off in the distance, Badagadi and Ruja together, so they're traveling. 'Cause that's the thing; it's not made clear in the light novel that it's just Badagadi just left.
Hmm.
He out of here. Um, so and then yeah.
Any
Uh,
big prediction? Any um
I
what's gonna happen? Where does the I mean
feel
the
like
end of 12 is kind of like a turning
I
point,
feel like
right?
the big prediction. Sorry, 12. Yeah, 12. Like leads like sends off at like a really like introspective note.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, this is really serious. This I'm gonna sit on this bit, and then you start the next chapter, and it's just like, oh, we're back to normal, like slice of life stuff. Like it's way more emotionally light, which is
Hmm.
quite funny. Um, I feel like the bold prediction would to be is that Eris doesn't get with him
Hmm. Interesting.
somehow.
Okay.
Um,
I like that. That's
I
a
feel like
brave
I feel like
prediction.
that's the bold prediction because I feel like well, that's like me trying to five head there. This doesn't really have any indication of that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. It's
Okay.
interesting. I mean, it's crazy. I kind of yeah, I don't know. The multiple wives thing is a bit of a weird sticking point because I do feel like every single time now, like basically at any scene with Roxy, I'm just like, this is not how it's meant to be. Get out of here, Roxy. Shoo shoo. You're the worst. Not the worst. I don't dislike her at all.
Hmm.
It's just more like, oh, it's so cute before, and now it's kind of like less cute somehow.
Hmm.
Um, just because yeah, it feels very unequal. I don't know. To me, it just doesn't feel like
Sure.
okay, get Luke involved. Oh wait, Luke wouldn't want to be involved, but I don't know. Like
Hmm.
yeah, do something like that, right? But I guess yeah, who would it be? I don't know.
Well, I guess we'll see how
But yeah,
this relationship evolves.
yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm one thing I'm super glad about is like it's happened like halfway through, like less than halfway through the story. There's tons of time for this to kind of so many love stories kind of end, but here like Mushoku Tensei has taken a lot of time thinking about stuff post confession, post marriage.
Hmm.
How does this new relationship work? They're all
Hmm.
trying to figure this out. They'll understand the situation. You know, like Rudeus is like they're all in an awkward spot, right?
Hmm.
And it's hard for them not to also give Eris the same treatment when she turns up because she's also like been hard done by, and she's clearly not emotionally like maturing. I don't think as she's going along here.
Hmm.
Um, and so she's not like progressing. She's just focused on Rudy so she can be strong enough for Rudy. So then when they marry, they can go on adventure together. Um,
Hmm.
which is funny because Roxy also wanted to go on a labyrinth thing with Rudy as well.
Very
Um,
true. Yep.
yeah, I think it's also funny. There's a couple of times where it's like Rudy's like, "I want to be the oblivious harem protagonist," and then he
Hmm.
calls himself out later. It's like, "Well, I actually was the oblivious harem protagonist," and I think that's almost like his self here. Where I'm like, somehow it works. Somehow like
Hmm.
it is working. I'm interested where it goes, and there's a lot more investment in this like than what I would have thought like the first season. After the first season, I was like, okay, yeah, we'll
Hmm.
see how it works out. But yeah, it helps. Yeah, I wonder.
Hmm.
What's gonna happen? Ruji's and Badagadi? Yeah, who knows? I feel like there's got to be the next thing has got to be something to do with Nanahoshi and her master. Like, what's the next big thing that's gonna happen? Because we kind of tied up. Zenith is maybe gonna get back to normal, but that's not gonna like change the world, right? Like, what's the next big global event that causes Rudius to become?
Well, do you
Um,
think there'll be any more global big events? Maybe.
yeah, I mean, that's a maybe not a global, but I feel there's gonna have to be another big. Like, we're only halfway through the story. Surely,
Hmm.
like, it would be pretty ballsy for the story to not go bigger after this. Like, I feel
Hmm.
like okay, generically, it'd be like, oh no, Laplace is like released. We got to do something about it. Something like that, right?
True. He does
Somehow
get
linked to
mentioned quite a bit.
the it's got a like basically okay. I guess the big mystery they've got to solve is why did that teleportation happen? And the big
Hmm.
thing to left resolved is how does Rudy feel about this life and his previous life, and how does he balance that?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and so
Excellent.
that's the big things to think of. So I'm thinking to get to that, Nanahoshi is the key. We have to find her master, and the next bomb
So who's her
time
master?
off to go off. The next ticking time bomb, sorry, is Eris turning back. turning up, but that's not like that's like an
Mhm.
interpersonal thing. That's not like a big plot thing, if that makes sense. You know?
Sure.
Um,
It's like a not a
hmm.
well, I was gonna say not a turning point, but I guess we've had like character kind of turning point. Like we've
Yeah,
done three
character
turning
turn
points so
points.
far.
Yeah.
Um,
I also saw something. I saw something. I'm getting all these. I'm getting. Okay, I'm getting some asinine Mushoku Tensei YouTube where it's
uh
like I watched it where it was like this guy was like actually Mushoku Tensei has the best female cast in anime. I'm
mm,
just like,
mm.
okay, I maybe if you read the light novel, but he's not read the light novel.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, you're wild, bro. You haven't actually. You've only watched. You must have only watched Shonen. Like he's just come off Naruto and being like, oh my word, this is a female.
Mm,
Like yeah, like he made all the basic points about how like yeah, Attack on Titan has a really deep female cast,
mm.
but Naruto sucks, man. I'm just like yeah,
True.
this is like so a guy who's never read like
All right,
female
Bacon.
oriented
What anime
entertainment.
has
Sorry,
the best female cast? Then go ahead.
female cast.
Mm.
Uh, Arcane.
True. Yep. That's very true.
There we go.
Good anime. My
I don't really
favorite
think of
anime.
yeah, great anime. I would my base point would be like villains suck, but I wouldn't
Mm.
put that. I wouldn't even say like I would say a good female cast would be like Full Metal Alchemist, of course. But I wouldn't
Sure.
say it's
Yeah.
like they got mind blowingly deep
Mm-hmm.
characters, I guess. But I would say it is very well rounded and used well, like they're not forgotten about.
Mm-hmm.
Mushoku Tensei has more odd vibes. I'd have to actually probably have a look. There's not one that comes straight to mind. I mean, Attack on Titan's got a good female characters, apart from Sasha.
Thank goodness.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
What else? What else? What would you say to that? Would you say Mushoku Tensei has the best female cast in anime?
I don't think so, but I think it's really good. I just don't know anything. I never categorize my stories by what has the best female cast.
Yeah.
Nothing's
Anyway,
even coming to
it was just
mind.
something. It was a bit. Anyway, this whole tangent came to this one moment where I saw fan animated turning points 1, 2, 4. I
Uh-oh.
was like, oh, have I seen 4? And it was like it had like a spoiler warning at the start. I was like, oh, I guess I shouldn't. But yeah, so I've only had 3. So I know there's a
Okay,
fourth.
so you don't know anything about the fourth one,
No, no,
or
no. I'm not.
okay.
I didn't spoil myself. Don't worry. Don't worry.
That's good. That's good.
And I feel like the turning points are getting less and less serious.
Mm-hmm. Well, can you name them? What were they? Quickly, I guess.
Okay, so
we're getting
we
toward
had
the
the
end here.
whole global teleportation. Then you
True.
had Orsted, and then you had
True.
his decision to go or not go. Right, like they're getting
Yep.
like more and more like, oh yeah, you got the whole man god thing to figure out. You
The
got the
whole
man
man
god.
god. What does that mean?
Well, you got to figure out who the man god is, right?
Mm.
What's his deal, yo? That's a big thing to be resolved. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like he's weirdly less mysterious. Oh, there was a really interesting point where like really was like, I trust the man god now. Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but yeah, like I feel like his man god is easier to understand.
Mm-hmm. We
That's
haven't
some
really talked
interesting
about any
points.
of his chapters, but I feel like they're pretty well adapted. Like
Yeah,
most of the details I think are in there.
but like you still get more details of like how Rudeus views him, and like the whole thing
Yeah.
about like when Rudeus is like, you probably just don't like Allstate because of his curse. I was like,
Mhm.
ooh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So man god is like not above the curse usage.
Mm.
Yeah, a bit more chummy relationship now. But then yeah, okay. I guess there was also a big thing where it's like, which I think was actually done better in the anime because it's like revealed way too fast. But like that moment when like Rudeus is running back, and it's like, oh, I don't regret anything. That means something must have bad happened at home. All this stuff, and then like the anime is like you don't see anybody. It's like all empty. It got me in the anime really good. I feel about this here, but I feel like the man god said he'd regret it either way. And the crazy thing is like, yeah, wait till the next mating season and then marry one of the cat girls or the cat dog girl.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because that's also kind of brought up in episode 13 where they really they're like jealous of Rudy, not the fact that they want Rudy, but they want Rudy's like partner, like have a partner like Rudy or something like that.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting. But yeah, like
So Rudy a regret.
definitely could have.
My goodness.
Yeah, but he would. But yeah, is it true that like the man god said he would regret it either way, or was that just Rudy's inference? I can't remember if the man god actually said that.
You know what, Bacon? I don't remember the details, so I don't want to speak because I know some other things, and I'm trying to. I don't know. I could be mixing stuff up.
Cool.
I'm not sure.
Cool.
But
All
there was
right, well,
definitely the man god at one point did say that if you do this, then
you'll
you're
regret it.
definitely
If you
gonna
don't
regret
stay,
it.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. He kind of said, if you stay, you regret it. If you don't stay, you'll regret it. But I want you to kind of stay. So yeah, he's kind of gone against what the man god wants, and like it's made way more conscience felt in the light novel. That he's like, yeah, this is the first time I've gone against the man god. What's gonna happen? And there's other times where he's been like, I'm just trusting the man god blindly here. So different relationship now, because initially he's like, I don't trust this guy, I don't trust this guy.
Yeah.
I guess I'm gonna have to trust this guy begrudgingly, and now he's like, maybe, maybe not.
I guess we'll have to see
All right.
what happens.
Well, I hope light novel readers, I say enough interesting stuff to warrant you guys listening to this hour and a half recording.
My goodness. Next time, I'm so excited, Bacon. There's going to be so much good stuff to talk about. Many predictions.
Should I just like tell you when I want to talk? Yeah.
I think there's a very clear point where we'll want to talk, but I guess we'll see.
So how long do you think that'll be? Like another week from now?
Well, considering how many you read in a week, yeah, I guess. We'll see. I'll tell me every time you finish a volume, and then what you think, and yeah, we'll not what we'll talk about this. Okay, we'll see. But I guess if you're watching right now, I don't know, leave some comments on what you think we should do going forward. I guess I don't know if we'll read them in time, but just let us know. You know, what do you think? How much should we talk and all that? And also just talk about how great Bacon's predictions and opinions are, and don't give any spoilers, okay?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's that. Anything else, Bacon?
Mushoku Tensei, good. Where would I rank it? What would I rate it? Oh no. I just saw Mushoku Tensei Volume 15, and I saw the cover, and I saw the color of the hair of an individual, and I got spoiled.
Unbelievable.
Oh, cringe. I mean, like,
I wouldn't worry too much. It depends on.
It doesn't tell you much, but it tells me enough. It tells me enough, Ari.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
You might be surprised.
I would say light novel. I think, yeah. Actually, I would say at the moment it's really hard to gauge how what should I rate it because it's like so much stuff. I know every single time there's new stuff, like explicitly this is new content, I'm like pogging off, right? So that's good, right? A little Eris chapter, even by the end of Norn chapter, I'm like, that was cool. And now I'm like, I can't wait till I get more stuff. But now we're in like a bit of a slow moment, and not in a bad slow moment. We're just in a slow moment. We're kind of going bit by bit. Everybody's kind of slice of lifing, and they're waiting for the next thing to hit them. You know, they're not looking out for plot points. Plot points have to come to them. So kind of waiting for that. I want to say it's like a 7 out of 10, which is good, but not like it's not like 10 out of 10 yet. But I feel there's gonna be 10 out of 10 moments. They're coming. They're coming down the pipeline.
Well, I would say that the majority of my videos are about stuff that we're nowhere near yet. So I guess we'll see. Yep. Exciting stuff ahead. Far ahead as well.
Would you say, okay, am I like, overall, do you prefer the part that I've read so far or the part that's coming up?
So I want to preface by saying that I think you value very different things to me when it comes to this story. To me, it's very clear that the stuff coming up is much better than the stuff, for me, in my perspective, much better than the stuff we've seen so far. I don't know how common of a belief that is. Like, I think, for instance, there's a stretch of like a couple of volumes. I don't want to say which ones, obviously, but I think they're undeniably the best stuff that happens in this entire story. And there's just so much consistently really good stuff and really deep stuff to actually analyze, which is kind of shocking for like a light novel. Yeah, there's really good stuff coming up that I think is better than the stuff that we've already read by far. But I don't know, you might actually disagree, because there's yeah, I don't want to say too much, but there's different elements in this story that come up at different points, and we focus on different things.
Can I ask if you can somewhat thread the needle? What do you think I like about this story most?
So based on what you've made very clear at this point is that you like the character dynamics, right?
Yes.
Which I think there's a lot of interesting character dynamics, of course, coming up. One thing you haven't talked about that much, actually, now that I think about it, but I know that you like it generally. And I guess we have talked a little bit about it, is themes. But I guess we're not necessarily, it's probably better to analyze themes the more you've seen a story. And we're only like halfway through, and there's a lot to talk about.
I've got the imposter syndrome theme down. We've got the sex theme. Which
that is true, yeah.
Don't find super interesting. I don't think the sex theme is interesting, but
I agree with
part of the story that, like, I feel like they haven't done much. They've done some interesting stuff, but it's not as dense, if that makes sense. It's like the Rudeus ED stuff is really interesting, and it's really good for the context that has come before it. But there's just so much of it that I feel like a lot of it is a bit waffly, but we'll see what happens. And there's also some dodgy stuff, like the whole stuff with Aisha in the bathtub. I'm just like, he's like man, if she wasn't my sister, I'm just like, dude, no,
Yeah.
she's 11. Like,
Yep. That's Mushoku Tensei sometimes. You just
and
gotta
it
brush
just
over these.
I don't know if it's just Japanese or if it's like making a point. That's definitely like it hasn't helped its case like for me being like, yeah, I am.
I think this is
Yeah, and
something
that
that
was
we should revisit when we've seen the whole story. Actually, it'd be something to because every time I always say this, for instance, with Kyle when I
cool.
was
I
going
need
through. There's a
I got
lot of
that big
stuff.
Mushoku Tensei video. I got a
Yeah.
big Mushoku Tensei video, which they're kind of making it like kind of half being like, well, maybe, but now maybe I can make more concrete things when I'm done, and I'm probably done in like by the time we get to October. I feel. I don't
Hmm.
know. I feel like I want to read it though. Now that I'm not listening to it, I want to read it
Sure.
because
Yeah.
I feel like particularly dialogue scenes like I'm sorry, but
It's tough to
the
follow.
any it's so much better when you read it yourself and it's not voices that is like predetermined for you. Like
Yeah.
you can I can like add my own interpretation on how Elinalise is bantering in the scene. There's like it also has like attacks and stuff like that.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So
No, I agree. But I read the audiobook because then I can play games while I listen to it.
yeah, no, that is nice. And like I like the reason why I've been blasting through it is because I've been like listening to it half and half while at work. Like my
Mhm.
work at the moment, I'm at a stage where I can listen to stuff. Like if I'm doing heavy coding, I need my brain capacity for
Yeah.
that. But when I'm doing a bit of grunt work at the moment, so it kind of helps make the work pass a bit faster.
Yep.
But yeah,
All right. Well, uh, thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you like this, and see you next time, whenever that is.
bye.